This guy thought he could test the monster in front of him. Satoshi wanted to know if he had the talent to become a real cultivator. So he challenged Makoto to a duel, but Makoto already warned him. Fighting him was not a test, it was a free ticket to the floor. Even worse, Yosuke and Koya also joined in, thinking 3 versus 1 would make things fair. But that was their first mistake. Yosuke rushed in first, acting like he was about to speedrun the fight. Then Makoto grabbed him before he could even blink and used him to mop the ground like a broken cleaning tool. After that, Satoshi and Koya attacked together. One came from above, the other tried to strike from below, but Makoto blocked them like he already read the script. Then he used Koya as a living ragdoll to slam him to Satoshi and kick both of them like a rejected side quest. Makoto then aura farmed, saying, "That's all you've got?" The 3 of them tried again with a new plan. This time, they attacked from every direction at once, but Makoto only tapped his foot, and it caused a massive shockwave that stopped their attacks. He then fixed Yosuke's gut by punching it and Koya's chin through professional chiropractic adjustment. Satoshi then used his last remaining powers and gave everything he had, thinking his last attack landed. But when the dust cleared, Makoto didn't even have a scratch. The worst part? The fight ended in under 2 minutes, and Makoto never moved from his original spot. That's when Satoshi realized the gap between them was not talent, it was heaven and earth. Well, the reason is, our MC Makoto Yamori, the strongest cultivator on the Liyue continent, saved the continent from crisis by repelling the Demon King's army during the Dark Ages. But after the victory, his very own comrades suddenly betrayed him. Right before his death, Makoto vowed to drag every last traitor that betrayed him to the depths of hell. But just when he thought everything was lost, Makoto was reincarnated in another world as a college student born to the prestigious Yamori family. However, the Makoto of this world is weak, useless, and has already been cast out by his family like trash. Makoto opens his eyes to find a group of people staring at him with curiosity. As he tries to grasp his surroundings, someone insults him, calling him useless trash for fainting during a test. Another student chimes in, reminding the first that Makoto has already been disowned by his family, making him unworthy of the title Young Master. Nearby, a blonde girl urges the school genius Kitama to return to his test, expressing her excitement for him to break another record. Kitama confidently agrees, and together they walk back side by side. The teacher then instructs the other students to head back to continue the physical fitness test. As everyone walks away, ignoring Makoto, a sudden rush of memories overwhelms him. He realizes he has been reincarnated as another boy, sharing the same name. In this new realm, the Makoto here has a frail body due to blocked meridians, which led to his clan abandoning him after his parents' death. As he sifts through these memories, he discovers that no one in this world understands cultivation. Taking in his surroundings, Makoto can sense the presence of chi in the air. In his past life, the people of Liyue discovered how to absorb this chi in the air. Makoto closes his eyes to concentrate on the chi, but he can only detect a small amount. Undeterred, he attempts to draw this energy into his body. Thanks to his previous knowledge of cultivation, he quickly learns how to absorb the chi. Like any dedicated cultivator, he plans to store this energy and use it to strengthen his body through consistent practice. Before long, the small amount of power he generates at this initial stage of cultivation clears his blocked meridians. Examining his physique, Makoto notices he has grown a few inches taller. With renewed determination, he vows to regain his strength and return to the Liyue continent to seek revenge on those who betrayed him. But for now, Makoto's plans for revenge have to wait, because he is only in the first stage of cultivation. And it will take a while before he returns to being the strongest guy on the continent. To check out the changes in his body and determine his current strength, Makoto decides to participate in the school's physical test. He quickly heads back to the field to inform the teachers of his decision. The students immediately start mocking him for trying to interrupt Kitama's turn. Apparently, Kitama is the school's favorite, and he has also received a recommendation to a prestigious physical education university. Kitama joins the student to mock Makoto, calling him a prideless garbage. Makoto ignores all their mockery, believing his current strength is far beyond that of an ordinary human. One dude reminds him that everyone has dropped out of the race because no one wants to go up against Kitama. A short while later, Makoto and Kitama step onto the track, getting ready to compete against one another. As soon as the starting gun fires, Kitama takes off without hesitation. In contrast, Makoto leisurely counts down, intentionally giving the so-called Wonder Boy a head start. The other students erupt in laughter, once again ridiculing Makoto for being worthless trash. After 3 seconds, Makoto finally sprints forward, shocking the onlookers. In just a few seconds, he zooms past Kitama with incredible speed like the Flash. Basically, when cultivators first appeared on the Liyue continent, their abilities, both physical and mental, far surpassed those of ordinary humans. As Makoto approaches the finish line, to everyone's amazement, he doesn't immediately cross it. Instead, he begins counting down once more, allowing his rival to catch up. He grants Kitama an extra 3 seconds before finally crossing the line. The teacher checks the timer, revealing that Makoto has achieved a new record of approximately 9 seconds. Kitama finishes the race as well, but he is in disbelief that he lost to the notorious school trash. Although he hasn't reached his full potential yet, Makoto feels satisfied with his current strength. With this fresh start, he pledges to ascend to greatness and prove wrong all those who once underestimated him. Back in the Liyue continent, Makoto was considered the strongest, and in roughly 50 years of training, he had exceeded numerous experts. He attained the 7th stage of cultivation at 65 years old, becoming the most powerful cultivator on the continent. Now stuck with this new useless skin, Makoto plans to use special medicines to help him hasten his cultivation. He checks their prices only to learn that they cost a fortune, and the original owner of his new body is a broke loser. Makoto wants to craft and sell talismans, but he doesn't even have enough money for low-grade materials. Not wanting to give up on his revenge plans, he decisively swears to find a way to earn money. Just as Makoto is still trying to figure out how to make money, Kitama, the field club captain, and his goons corner him in the bathroom. In the bullying squad, there is also Haru, the boxing club captain. Kitama informs Makoto that due to his racing stunt in the field earlier, he has to give them the required protection fee early. From his memory, Makoto recalls that they always extorted money from the original owner. Only last week, Kitama, Haru, Hota, and Akira had cornered him to collect money under the guise of a protection fee. Noticing Makoto's unsettling expression, Kitama feels uneasy and asks Haru to take charge. Haru, confident in his abilities, believes he can easily take down someone as worthless as Makoto with a single blow. He throws the first punch, but to their surprise, Makoto dodges effortlessly. The previous Makoto would have simply endured the attack, but this is a breeze for the new and improved Makoto. After evading Haru's strike, he delivers a powerful punch that leaves Haru with a facelift. Next, Makoto turns his attention to Akira, kicking him aside like discarded trash. Hota and Kitama stand in shock, unable to believe this is the same spineless Makoto they once mocked. Makoto glances at them and casually asks if they are now terrified. Instead of retreating, Hota and Kitama rush to attack him. However, he easily grabs their wrists, stopping their attack midway. With such ease, he crushes their wrists, leaving them screaming in pain. Makoto ignores their cries as he visibly relishes their misery. Unable to bear the pain anymore, Hota and Kitama frantically plead with him to stop. Makoto then releases them, effortlessly tossing them into a corner like discarded trash. By now, Kitama is terrified and trembling to the point that he pleads with Makoto to have mercy on them. Makoto agrees, but as he tries to leave, Haru suddenly charges towards him. This time, Makoto completely obliterates any remaining bones in his face with a single punch. He warns Haru that he won't be so lucky the next time he tries. Seeing the whole scene unfold, Kitama and the others almost crap their pants at the overwhelming sight of Makoto. Makoto orders them to return everything they took from him, leaving them confused. When he repeats himself again fiercely, Kitama screams in fear, promising to return them. He then pulls out a wad of cash and bows respectfully to present it to Makoto. After taking the cash, Makoto heads out of the bathroom, hoping they won't report him to anyone. However, since they look so terrified, he believes they won't have the courage to tell anyone. On his way out, Makoto decides to leave school soon, since it is inconvenient for him to continue while working to achieve his goals. He counts the cash and is satisfied that it is enough for him to purchase low-grade materials for crafting talismans, which he can sell to save up towards his goal of revenge. Afterwards, Makoto purchases the materials for his talisman and prepares to craft them. A talisman is an item used by low-level cultivators. He creates them by pouring spiritual energy into the materials to obtain their mystical effects. Even though he is just a chi refining cultivator at the first stage, Makoto easily refines them, crafting a bunch of low-grade talismans. He plans to sell them and then find a suitable place for medicinal cultivation. Unfortunately, after 3 weeks, Makoto still can't sell even one talisman. He found a corner on a street to display the goods, but people stared at him with contempt. During his morning run, Makoto finds a severely injured dog on the street. He uses one of his healing talismans on the dog to test its effect. Just as he expected, the dog immediately recovered from all its injuries. The dog wags its tail, barking happily at Makoto, but it suddenly turns hostile when 2 people approach, arguing. One of them is Sho, the only son of the Wada family, and the other is a girl named Shizuru, the daughter of the Shuga family. They seem to be searching and arguing about a dog. They had seen the dog involved in an accident earlier, but Sho didn't care if it died. Shizuru, on the other hand, wanted them to find and take it to a hospital. Soon, she stops arguing when she sees the dog in Makoto's arms, looking very healthy. Shizuru quickly rushes over, wondering how the dog looks fine when it was covered in blood only moments ago. Looking at her bag, Makoto realizes that they might be heading to the hospital to visit someone. He takes advantage of the situation to show her the talisman he used on the dog. Makoto tries to advertise his goods, but Sho angrily barks at him, calling him a scammer. Shizuru dismisses Sho's rambling and turns to Makoto, asking if the talisman can help someone in a vegetative state. In response, Makoto presents a spirit-cleansing talisman designed for repair and regeneration. He assures her that it works effectively for patients in such conditions. Sho finds this hard to believe and tries to convince Shizuru not to buy it, but she ignores him again. Makoto then demonstrates how to use the talisman, explaining that she simply needs to hold it up to the patient for it to take effect. He mentions that the larger talismans cost 400,000 yen, while the smaller ones are priced at 200,000. To everyone's surprise, Shizuru offers to pay 1,000,000 yen for all the talismans. Infuriated, Sho lunges at Makoto, demanding he leave. However, before he can strike, Makoto grabs Sho's wrist and twists it painfully, warning him to back off and stop interfering. Despite Sho's struggles, he cannot escape Makoto's grip. After a moment, Makoto effortlessly throws him aside and returns to his transaction with Shizuru. Once the deal is finalized, he explains the purpose of each talisman, saying that the yellow one offers protection, while the red one is a fireball talisman. Before departing, Makoto expresses his hope that she never has to use the red and yellow talismans. Shizuru happily thanks him, asking him for his name. As he walks away, Makoto tells her his name before leaving with the dog trailing beside him. Sho, having recovered from the beating, resumes his complaints about Shizuru falling victim to an absurd scam. While she trusts his words, Shizuru continues to hold on to the slim hope that it can help her mother regain consciousness. In the meantime, Makoto returns, feeling pleased that he successfully sold all his talismans. With the money earned, he can now find a suitable place to live. But first, he intends to look for medicinal herbs for cultivation purposes. Suddenly, he is distracted when the dog begins barking at a nearby house. Makoto glances up to find the residence entirely shrouded in spiritual energy. Upon closer inspection of the garden, he spots silver heartgrass growing there. In the meantime, Sho is in the hospital receiving treatment for the wounds on his wrist. As the nurse treats his wounds, Sho continues to rant angrily, vowing to destroy Makoto next time. In the same hospital in her mother's room, Shizuru receives a scolding from her father, Kenji, the councilman of Konkai City, for embarrassing the family by falling for a scam. His loud outburst soon attracts mocking whispers from the nurses. They mock Shizuru for wasting money to buy fake talismans. Shizuru ignores them, telling her father that she is willing to try anything to heal her mother. This only makes Kenji furiously bark at her, calling her a fool for believing such an absurd thing. Kenji's outburst enrages Shizuru, and she shouts at her father for not even visiting her mom. She blames him for delaying getting her to the hospital, which caused her to fall into a coma. Kenji, unable to respond, is completely taken aback by her words. Shizuru continues, claiming her father would just move to the next woman when her mother dies. Now Kenji is furious and almost slaps her, but he stops midway. He turns to leave, expressing his disappointment at how insolent she has become. Before leaving, he informs her that a nurse will be coming to pull her mom off life support. Shizuru protests the decision, and grabbing her mom's hand, she presses the talisman into it. Suddenly, a bright light bursts from the talisman, and to her shock, her mother rubs her hair, calling out Shizuru's name. The whole thing also catches Kenji's attention, just as he is about to step out. Shizuru's mom, Yoko, looks at her daughter, remarking how she has grown thinner. Kenji then dashes out of the room to call a doctor. On getting outside, he shouts at the top of his lungs happily, informing everyone that his wife has awakened. The shocked doctor and nurse rush inside to run a few tests on Yoko. After the tests, the doctor informs them that Yoko should return to her daily life in less than 2 years. Shizuru shows them the talisman, explaining that it healed her mom, but the doctor refuses to believe her. Sho has also arrived to witness the commotion and finds the whole thing unbelievable. The doctor orders the nurse to contact the award-winning Professor Suzuki for further tests. Still in disbelief, Sho is now beginning to see the possibility that he may have been totally wrong about Makoto. Ignoring all the doubting Thomases in the room, Shizuru and her mom happily embrace each other. Looking at the remaining talismans, Shizuru promises to repay Makoto if she ever meets him again. In the meantime, Makoto has successfully moved into the house shrouded in spiritual energy. He looks around, satisfied with his progress towards returning to the Luyue continent to destroy all those who betrayed him. With renewed determination, Makoto vows never to forgive the traitors. Makoto believes that the day of his revenge can only come sooner, when he reaches the Chi refining stage 11. To reach this stage, he needs to acquire a spirit spring and spirit materials to help him attain the title of the strongest cultivator. Later that night, Makoto ponders how to increase his cultivation. From the look of things, he can feel the spiritual energy of this world withering gradually. If the energy vanishes completely, he will no longer be able to cultivate. Makoto wonders how he can find a place or item rich in spiritual energy to help him break out of the current situation. He had been worried about finding a spiritual spring or spiritual materials, but somehow he was lucky to find the silver heart grass growing in the garden. This grass is basically considered a spiritual material, and unlike ordinary medicinal herbs, it can be used to refine elixirs capable of increasing one's cultivation. Makoto believes that refining the berries from this grass into a pill might help him reach the second stage of cultivation. However, he fears that even the slightest mistake in refining the pill can also destroy his progress. Not wanting to wait for any unexpected situations, Makoto decides to start training immediately to stay prepared. The following day, he heads out to try and sell a few more talismans because refining cultivation pills is way too expensive. Makoto is minding his business, trying to keep his head down, when he suddenly notices a group of thugs keeping tabs on him from a distance. He had already noticed them watching him since the third day after he started selling talismans on the street. Makoto notes that there are a few more of them than usual today, meaning they might make their move on him soon. Deciding to face them head-on, he proceeds to pack up, but is suddenly interrupted by a girl who calls his name. The girl says she has been worried about him since he suddenly stopped attending school. While Makoto tries to recall who she is, the girl rambles on about all his problems, including subtly calling him a broke loser. After searching his memories, Makoto recalls that the girl is Mochiyama, who once stood up for the previous owner. She offers to lend him money so that he can return to school, but Makoto completely ignores her and leaves. She tries to call him back, but he refuses to answer, making her suspect that something must have happened to him. In the meantime, Makoto keeps walking while quietly counting the number of thugs targeting him. After counting about 10 of them, he slips into an alley confident he can take them all at once. Seeing him take a detour, the thugs quickly chase after him, holding daggers. A few moments later, they catch up to him in a lonely alley with a dead end ahead. Thinking they already have him pinned down, the thugs relax confidently, declaring that he has nowhere to escape to. To their amusement, he confidently orders them to attack him at once, but none of them takes him seriously. Makoto asks why they have been watching him for days. He tries to make them reveal who sent them. The bald dude simply informs him that he pissed off someone powerful. Another dude questions why the young lady of the Amatani family took an interest in Makoto. Makoto is a bit confused, but he soon recalls that Setsu, the young lady of the Amatani family, was engaged to the original owner. However, after he was exiled from his clan, she brutally dumped him and canceled their engagement. The whole situation puzzles Makoto as he wonders why they are trying to eliminate someone over a broken engagement. Seeing that they have no intentions of giving him a straight answer, he decides to make them talk in a more creative manner. Just behind the whole scene, Mochiyama observes them quietly, wondering how he got involved with the Yakuza. Fearing that Makoto is too weak to deal with the terrifying Yakuza, she decides to call the police for help. Unfortunately, someone discovers her before she can make the call, and he quickly grabs her while she struggles to get away. The commotion catches the others' attention, and they turn to find their boss yanking Mochiyama effortlessly like a little puppy. Makoto is also surprised because he hadn't sensed her following him. The boss teases him for being popular among girls, including fooling around while stringing Setsu along. Mochiyama, ignoring her own safety, barks at Makoto, telling him to run. She claims the thugs cannot harm her since she is a member of a powerful family. Hearing this only makes the boss laugh at her stupidity. He menacingly boasts that no one would find out if he eliminates her in this deserted alleyway. Deciding to take her out first, he pulls out a dagger, aiming for her neck, but Makoto steps in just in time to break his wrist with a single punch. Without giving him any time to register the whole thing, he grabs the boss's face and effortlessly slams him into the ground. Everyone watches the whole scene in shock. Even Mochiyama wonders if he is the same Makoto she remembers. Seeing them intimidated, Makoto firmly asks them again who sent them to attack him. In another part of town, Officer Kaya receives an urgent message over the intercom that the Scar Gang is on the move. He learns that more than 30 gang members are heading toward an alley on East Street. The caller, who is an officer at the scene, reveals that they are after a boy and have taken a young girl hostage. Without hesitation, Officer Kaya speeds off in his vehicle, instructing the caller to request reinforcements, but not to inform Police Chief Unaga just yet. He cautions the caller to wait for backup instead of rushing in. The officer at the scene updates Kaya, suggesting that reinforcements may not be necessary. He explains that the boy being targeted has already taken down all the gang members on his own. In the meantime, Makoto is still dealing with the boss, who finds it hard to believe he is the same trash weakling from the Yamori clan. Makoto interrogates him, asking if the Amatani or Yamori clan sent them. Seeing his hesitation, he squeezes the boss's skull, threatening him to answer in 3 seconds. Due to the pain, the boss frantically begs him to stop. Suddenly, Officer Kaya arrives at the scene, telling Makoto to stop. Makoto is surprised to see them, wondering how the cops found them so soon. He contemplates escaping, but decides not to show off the extent of his strength. He then releases the boss, who is relieved to be finally saved. Makoto knows that with his current strength, he might not be able to go against state power. Kaya is also relieved to have de-escalated the situation, but he still finds it hard to believe that one scrawny boy handled 30 gang members alone. He then introduces himself to Mochiyama and Makoto as the city's police sergeant, but Makoto ignores him while Mochiyama cheerfully greets him. Kaya assures them that his companion, Rokuhara, will handle everything smoothly. This only puts Makoto on edge, as he realizes they had seen everything from the beginning. As if sensing his unease, Kaya informs him that Rokuhara will take their statements without inquiring into any unrelated things. Out of nowhere, Police Commissioner Unuga arrives, labeling Makoto a criminal and placing him under arrest. He smirks maliciously, waving the arrest warrant in front of Makoto. Mochiyama, furious, insists that the armed men attacked them first, but Onuga insists he only witnessed Makoto assaulting the men. The Scar boss laughs triumphantly as another officer drags him away. Kaya, filled with rage, confronts Onuga, reminding him of the armed gang's true identity. Onuga ignores his rants, belittling him for trying to go up against a second-grade police chief while threatening to fire him. Kaya, unfazed, continues cursing at his boss, but Rokuhara holds him back, telling him to calm down. Kaya stops struggling when Makoto unexpectedly surrenders, accepting his arrest. He senses that a mastermind is orchestrating events from behind the scenes. Onuga laughs triumphantly at Makoto's surrender, but Makoto's true intention is to gather information about this hidden puppet master. He aims to resolve the situation before it disrupts his cultivation progress. Curious, Makoto asks Onuga how he discovered his identity as a university student. Onuga is caught off guard, realizing he let something slip while boasting. Makoto calls him a lackey and offers to help eliminate the true mastermind. Onuga pretends to be innocent, claiming he knows nothing about any mastermind. As he turns to leave, Makoto reveals a button, leaving Onuga in shock, wondering when Makoto had time to pull out the button. As another officer slaps the cuffs on his wrist, Makoto casually warns Onuga that next time, he will take more than a button. Onuga considers this disrespectful and vows to remember it. Back in the prison cell, an officer draws the attention of a prisoner inside, informing him that the target will arrive soon. He informs the fierce-looking prisoner that his job is to eliminate the target. Moments later, Makoto is escorted into the same cell. From the expression on the faces of the two guards, he senses that they plan to lynch him, but Makoto is not worried. He soon notices the prisoner hired for the job, quietly watching him from a corner. For a moment, Makoto wonders if this stranger is also the mastermind behind the setup. Before he can think further, the prisoner slowly stands up and begins rambling about justice and fate, ranting about some self-righteous nonsense. He introduces himself as Funaki and openly admits he was paid to eliminate Makoto. Clearly enjoying himself, Funaki tells Makoto not to resist and to accept his end quietly. Makoto steps forward, unfazed, and calmly asks who hired him. Since entering the cell, he had sensed something unusual, and it was the prisoner radiating an aura called Reiatsu. Without hesitating, Funaki attacks Makoto, preparing to send him to the afterlife. To his utter shock, Makoto vanishes into thin air just as the strike closes in on him. In the next instant, Makoto reappears beside him and slams him into the ground with a single palm strike. He confidently states that the weaker one here is Funaki. Refusing to back down, Funaki grabs his heels, hurling him into the air, but that does nothing to harm Makoto. Seeing him land effortlessly, Funaki finally realizes he may have underestimated his opponent, but that doesn't stop him from boasting. Ignoring his loud mouth, Makoto swoops in swiftly, striking him down with a single punch. Funaki is shocked by the overwhelming power of the punch. Without letting him regain his composure, Makoto drops in from above to deliver the final blow. Funaki tries to block the attack, but Makoto's kick is just too powerful. Still not learning his lesson, Funaki angrily charges towards him again. Unfortunately for him, Makoto effortlessly dodges the attack and proceeds to sink a powerful punch into Funaki's abdomen, completely destroying him. This time, Funaki seems to have realized the huge gap between their strength as he cowers in the corner, wondering what just happened. Not planning to let him go, Makoto looms over him with a heavy and terrifying aura. He immediately smashes Funaki's head into the ground, demanding for the name of the puppet master. Makoto also demands to know where he obtained the Reiatsu from. Meanwhile, Onuga is in his office, still shaken up by his exchange with Makoto. He thunders while on a call, demanding to know what kind of monster they sent his way. The caller named Hashimoto assures him that Makoto is simply a weak trash abandoned by the Yamori clan. Onuga is a bit relieved to hear this and hopes they can eliminate him without any drama. Hashimoto confidently assures him that he has sent rioters who came out of Ryuta to handle him. He further promises to recommend Onuga to Lord Aima for promotion as the district police chief. Onuga agrees and reminds Hashimoto not to forget this promise. In the prison cell, Funaki remains tight-lipped, refusing to reveal any secrets despite enduring severe beatings. Makoto admires his discipline. Funaki tells Makoto that he underestimated him, prompting Makoto to wonder if there are other cultivators in the world. Funaki recounts his encounter with an old monk in Ryuta a few years ago, who could effortlessly manipulate chi to split a tree in half. The monk gifted him a bottle of divine water, instructing him to dilute it before use. After following these instructions for several years, Funaki's body transformed into an extraordinary form. From this story, Makoto realizes that the divine water Funaki mentioned is likely Reiatsu or spirit liquid. He contemplates whether he can also find a spiritual spring in Ryuta. Basically, spiritual springs form in areas with a high concentration of spiritual energy. Over time, this energy gradually transforms into spirit liquid, eventually creating a spring. On the Luyue continent, even a small amount of this spirit liquid is considered rare and valuable due to its potency and usefulness for cultivators. Makoto asks Funaki why someone as powerful as him would involve himself in the struggles of ordinary people. Funaki reveals that he needs a substantial amount of money for his child, who is suffering from ALS. He further explains that he had tried to use the divine water on his son, but it did not work. To earn enough money to keep him alive, Funaki had to earn quick bucks by accepting this deal. After contemplating the illness for a moment, Makoto offers to help cure the boy. He explains to Funaki that the divine water is actually spirit liquid, also called reiatsu, which can be harmful to ordinary people. While regular spiritual energy may not pose a threat, the concentrated nature of spirit liquid can do more harm than good for the sick boy. He further adds that spirit energy can be used properly by a special technique. He shows Funaki the healing talisman he previously used on the dog, and to illustrate its power, Makoto uses it on him. To Funaki's astonishment, the talisman instantly heals all his injuries. Holding the talisman triumphantly, Makoto gives Funaki an ultimatum to either reveal the identity of his employer or face death. Without hesitation, Funaki discloses that he was hired by someone named Hashimoto. Elsewhere, Hashimoto, the owner of the Kozan Club, just finished a call with Unaga. With a cheerful demeanor, he turns to a battered girl bound before him and asks if she would like something to eat or drink. Unable to respond, she can only cry and struggle. Hashimoto steps closer, forcing her mouth open and extracting a tooth with a small shear. As the girl screams in agony, he laughs maniacally. Their torment session is interrupted when a butler enters to inform him that Lord Aima is seeking an update on the Makoto situation. Satisfied with his little plaything, Hashimoto casually tells the butler that someone is already addressing the issue. He plans to visit the police station to check on the progress, as he already considers Makoto dead meat. He then instructs the butler to reassure Lord Aima to remain calm and wait for his good news. Back at the prison, Makoto and Funaki seem to have come to a truce. In gratitude for the healing talisman, Funaki presents Makoto with a pendant containing concentrated spirit liquid. This excites Makoto, as even a small amount sprinkled on silver grass will yield fruit instantly. Once he processes these fruits into chi pills, he can quickly use them to advance to the second level of cultivation. He expresses his thanks to Funaki, who cautions him that Hashimoto will keep hunting him. Funaki warns that anyone who falls into Hashimoto's trap rarely escapes unscathed. Unfazed by this warning, Makoto confidently proclaims that he will handle Hashimoto. Meanwhile, Shizuru arrives at Neihai University to find Makoto. She had seen his photo and discovered that he was the infamous discarded trash of the Yamori clan, so she tracked him all the way to his school. Shizuru still can't believe that Makoto is a junior at her school. She quickly heads to the president's office to learn more about him. The president of Neihai University just happens to be Jin, Mochiyama's uncle. Inside his office, Mochiyama is involved in a heated argument with President Jin. She wants him to help save Makoto, but Jin has no plans of getting dragged into such a shitstorm. Mochiyama, however, refuses to back down, as she blames herself for Makoto's arrest and involvement with corrupt cops. She struggles to make her point while Kumono, an instructor at the university, tries to hold her back. She assures Mochiyama that Makoto will be released soon. Just then, they all turn around to see Shizuru arriving at the scene. She immediately asks them if they're talking about Makoto. Back at the police station, Kaya is raising hell in Onaga's office about his corrupt practice. They have been chasing Scar and his gang for years without any progress, but now Onaga is just letting them slip away freely. Onaga casually informs Kaya that accusing a superior without evidence is a felony. Kaya, refusing to back down, angrily states that the chief is planning to do something suspicious behind the scenes. Unfortunately, he has no evidence to back his bogus claims. Just as the two men prepare to engage in a stare-down, Mochiyama and Shizuru burst into the office with Rokohara behind them, attempting to stop them. Mochiyama angrily points at the chief, telling Shizuru that he was the person who falsely accused Makoto. Onaga quietly studies Shizuru, wondering about her identity. From the information he received, Makoto has no significant backing from any powerful families. Reassuring himself that Makoto is just garbage, he confidently informs them that they can't release a criminal suspected of robbery and assault. Kaya angrily protests the charges, demanding to know when all that happened. Onaga informs him that it involves a secret investigation, so he cannot reveal anything to them. Mochiyama angrily declares that locking up Makoto while releasing Yakuza members is plain corruption. Onaga, unfazed by her threats, warns her to leave or face arrest for obstruction of justice. Just as he is about to make a call, Shizuru quietly sits down and, crossing her leg like a boss, she dares him to make a move. Onaga then orders his subordinates to throw them into a holding cell. He announces that they are being detained on suspicion of being accomplices of Makoto. He goes further to suspend Kaya for harboring criminals. Kaya, as usual, barks in protest, while Shizuru remains calm. Hearing Shizuru call the charges bogus claims, Onaga laughs with satisfaction, and then decides to make her sentence heavier for insulting a government official. Shizuru simply questions whether he is receiving any special favors from someone for arresting Makoto. Seeing his scheme about to be exposed, he stammers, trying to hide his discomfort with the questions. Shizuru then asks if Makoto's situation can be resolved with some money. Unaga has relaxed once again, telling her that Makoto ended up this way for pissing off powerful people. He further adds that Shizuru and Mochiyama will also end up with the same fate. Unaga shamelessly cooks up a pretty convincing scenario of how he can simply eliminate them, including Kaya. He boasts that he can blame Kaya's death on the girls and then blame their demise on taking down 2 criminals who assaulted and eliminated a police officer. After hearing such a convincing script, Kaya and Mochiyama are visibly shaken, but Shizuru remains unbothered. To their shock, Shizuru asks someone named Director Oji, who was already on a call with her, if he heard everything the corrupt chief said. Director Oji confirms that he heard everything, leaving Unaga extremely terrified. Shizuru sits back down confidently, asking him if he needs her to introduce herself again. From the other end of the line, Director Oji reads out Unaga's charges and even mentions that he threatened the family member of a council member. For all his atrocities, Unaga is immediately suspended pending interrogation into his crime. Director Oji also informs them that he will be arriving at the office to join them soon. After absorbing everything, Unaga sinks into his chair, still shaken, and wondering which council member's family he had offended. To answer his questions, Shizuru then reveals that she is the young lady of the Suga family of Neihai City. It is at this very moment that Unaga realizes he messed up big time. Meanwhile, back in the prison cell, Makoto is still reeling over his new gift from Funaki. The amount of spirit liquid stored inside it is quite small, so he reasons that it can only be used once. His senses perk up as he senses someone approaching, and Makoto turns around, surprised to see Shizuru and Mochiyama standing there. At this point, Hashimoto has learned that all his plans have been thwarted. In a fit of rage, he starts smashing objects in his home, frustrated that one henchman is near death while the other is headed to prison. After destroying a few vases, he contemplates his next move, realizing that failing the Ima family mission could put his own life at risk. Refusing to back down, he decides to send his bodyguard, whom he believes is the best person for the job. He orders the bodyguard to bring Makoto back alive, vowing to eliminate the trash with his own hands. Makoto is now back home, and as usual, he is broke after buying a few materials for pill refinement. He immediately refines the pill and pops it into his mouth without wasting time. After taking the pill, he can feel its amazing effect almost immediately as he floats in the air surrounded by a golden light. Although the pill is impure, Makoto is satisfied with the effect, which is something special for a place with little spiritual energy. Finally, he breaks through to Chi refining stage 2, just as he has been longing to. He practices his cloud shadow step, which he hasn't used since his reincarnation, and the speed amazes even the dog. Makoto is satisfied with the results, confidently stating that a bullet has nothing on his speed. Afterwards, he thinks about how to get his next supply of spirit liquid since he already used the one Funaki gifted him. He contemplates going to Ryuta to try his luck, but going there via the normal route is considered dangerous. Therefore, Makoto decides to rely on the local contact he received from Funaki. However, his major problem is money, because it will cost him roughly 2 million yen for entry procedures alone. Just then, a television ad for a beauty product grabs Makoto's attention. In a world where women are obsessed with looking youthful, he sees an opportunity to capitalize on this trend. He picks up a package from the table, eager to use its contents at an upcoming party. Just 5 hours earlier, after being released from prison, he had shared lunch with Shizuru. Sitting across from her, he still found it hard to believe she was the daughter of a councilman. After a brief silence, she asked him to do her a favor by attending a party at the Sugao building to celebrate her mother's recovery. This building houses the city's largest cosmetics market, and Shizuru owns it. This is the party Makoto is excited to attend. The next evening, he arrives at the lavish party on the top floor of the Sugao building, holding the box. Inside is the Juyan pill, an elixir he has refined. While he can't create spirit pills at his level, making elixirs like this one is well within his abilities. The Juyan pill is a popular, affordable remedy among female cultivators on the Luyo continent. Makoto plans to sell a few to wealthy women at the party to earn 2 million yen. Scanning the crowd, he spots Shizuru and her family, and he prepares to attract his target customers. Shizuru is dealing with her aunt and uncle, Eno and Shiro Hoshisu, who are pressuring her to get married soon. Still only in her 30s, they label her an old maid and warn that she might end up like the family's old spinster, Masami. Shiro even insults Masami, calling her a waste of space. Masami attempts to defend herself but struggles to find the right words, which only makes Shiro more relentless. Yoko, now frustrated, tells Shiro to stop, while Shizuru reminds him that Masami raised him and many others after their grandmother passed away. Undeterred, Shiro urges Yoko to convince Shizuru to settle down quickly. Yoko, still recovering from a long coma, coughs, prompting Shizuru to check on her. Despite the tense atmosphere, Shiro remains aggressive, even suggesting a family for Shizuru to get married into. He warns that if she doesn't settle down, she might become defective goods. Masami tries to voice her opinion, but Shiro cuts her off, adding that no cosmetic product can restore her youth. At that moment, Makoto seizes the chance to speak up. He criticizes Shiro for insulting Shizuru, a prominent figure in the cosmetic industry. Furious, Shiro calls for security to remove Makoto from the venue, but Shizuru informs everyone that he is the one who saved Yoko. Yoko takes Makoto's hand to thank him for selling the talisman to Shizuru. Shiro is disgusted by the mere sight of Makoto and accuses him of being a scammer. He claims that Yoko woke up from the coma purely due to medical science. Ignoring all the snide comments, Makoto introduces himself as a researcher and business partner of Shizuru. Even Shizuru is surprised by the title of her business partner. The onlookers erupt with disdain, telling him he has nothing to add about their discussion concerning the restoration of one's youth. Makoto confidently displays his box, promising to show them something good. He hands Masami the box, inviting her to swallow the Juyan pill. Shiro is the first to doubt him, suspecting it might actually be something poisonous. Masami stares blankly at it, wondering if she can truly eat the pill. Shizuru assures her that she can trust Makoto, and Yoko also supports her. The crowd breaks into whispers about the impossibility of a rejuvenation pill existing. To give her a push, Makoto whispers in Masami's ear, asking if she doesn't want to regain her wasted youth. Thinking about how all the ungrateful leeches she spent all her youth on have been ridiculing her for so long, Masami decides to take the gamble. To everyone's shock, she picks up the pill and pops it into her mouth. Everyone waits in anticipation to see the rejuvenation effects, but after a few seconds, nothing happens. Shiro bursts into laughter, mocking Makoto for being a fraud. Suddenly, the pill takes effect, and to their shock, Masami actually returns to her youthful appearance. Someone quickly grabs a mirror to show her the results, and even Masami is amazed by her restored appearance. Just like that, Makoto's pill became a hot commodity as old ladies immediately flocked around requesting one. He prices the pill at 400,000 yen per pill and informs them that he only has 10 currently available. Hearing this, a live auction begins right there, with everyone struggling to offer the highest price. Even Shiro wants to bid at the highest price for the Juyan pill. He plans to secure an exclusive distribution rights deal no matter the cost. Enno tries to stop him, but Shiro barks at her to shut up. He believes Makoto can be brainwashed long enough for them to marry off Shizuru to the Ocho family. Shiro literally plans to sell her off under the guise of marriage to receive a substantial amount from the Ochos. At that moment, a fat dude from the Kozan group approaches Makoto with an offer of 4 million yen for exclusive distribution rights to the Juyan pill. Another company representative quickly counters with a bid of 20 million. Shiro then intervenes confidently, urging everyone to settle down. He requests a private conversation with Makoto and presents an offer of 30 million, along with a proposal to share the profits. He elaborates that he gets 70% of the profit while Makoto gets 30, claiming it is a good deal since they will be using the Hoshisu's family influence. Hearing this, Shizuru calls his family a garbage bin with no connections to offer, infuriating Shiro. Shiro reminds her that she is related to them from her mother's side. Shizuru reminds him that he lost that right when he lost over 100 million using the company left by her grandmother as collateral. Shiro tries to deny the accusations, but she pulls up evidence threatening to read them out loud. Masami and Yoko, who have been in the dark, are also shocked to hear he ran their mother's company to the ground. Shiro, now shaking in his pants, asks Shizuru how she found the evidence. Shizuru further reveals that Shiro only came to the party to demand money from Yoko, just like he bled her grandmother dry. Clearly seeing through his schemes, she declares that she will not give him a single cent. She has also discovered that he plans to swindle Makoto since he doesn't even have the 30 million yen. Shiro, utterly defeated, falls to his knees, pleading for her help. He shamelessly asks Yoko to assist him in begging Shizuru. However, Yoko refuses, clearly expressing her disappointment in him for destroying their mother's legacy. Like a classic mama's boy, he clings to Masami's skirt, begging her to intervene since he is the last man standing in the family. Fed up with this ungrateful leech, Masami shoves him aside, refusing to help. In the end, Shiro is confronted by the very group of women he has always looked down upon. Shizuru gives him an ultimatum: either go to jail or sell his company to her for a mere 1 yen, leaving him utterly shattered. Onlookers mock him, saying he deserves this fate. Shizuru then turns to Makoto, offering to introduce him to a more competent business professional. She explains that 40 million is a fair price to settle for, and he should aim to retain 80% of the profits. She warns him to stay alert, as the sharks at this party will take advantage of him. To her surprise, Makoto decides to entrust everything to her. Later that evening, she drives him back to his apartment and comments on how nice it is. Makoto informs her that it's just a rental. He thanks her for the ride, and Shizuru reassures him, calling him her friend. Taken aback by the term, Makoto is surprised when she repeats it and extends her hand to seal their friendship. After their exchange, he quietly heads inside, still reflecting on everything. He looks up at the moon, realizing that this new life might not be so bad after all. Upon entering his house, Makoto is met with the shocking sight of his dog sprawled in a pool of its own blood. The dagger remains in place, serving as a grim warning, and the whole scene leaves Makoto extremely angry. Just a few moments ago, a shady dude had called Hashimoto to inform him that Makoto arrived home with a girl. To make Hashimoto taste despair, they plan to capture Shizuru. Hashimoto even boasts on the phone about the warning they left inside his house. Makoto rushes inside quickly to check on the dog, and thankfully, it was still breathing. Hoping the healing talisman can heal it, he removes the knife and places the talisman on the dog. Meanwhile, an intruder lurks in the shadow just right above, observing Makoto. He suddenly charges down, preparing to attack him from the back. To his shock, Makoto swiftly vanishes with his dog and reappears behind, slamming the intruder into the ground with one kick. More assassins soon appear at the scene, wondering what just happened. Makoto gently pushes the dog aside to face them alone. He looks at them with so much rage, and without hesitation, they charge towards him. One guy reminds them to keep Makoto alive according to their employer's order. As soon as they see how effortlessly Makoto deals with one guy, the others halt in their steps, horrified by what they have just witnessed. Ignoring Makoto's cocky behavior, another foolish dude immediately rushes in, only to have his arm torn apart like a sausage. Refusing to let him go, Makoto snaps his neck like tearing through a Thanksgiving turkey. By now the rest of the gangs are already terrified, so they pull out the big guns, planning to incapacitate him by aiming for his limbs. However, what these suckers fail to understand is that Makoto is already faster than bullets. Unbothered by their pew-pew, he swerves around swiftly like the Flash, dodging the bullets. Makoto vows to take them down one by one until they beg for mercy and reveal who sent them. In another location, Shizuru finds herself captured by the deranged Hashimoto, who intends to indulge in his twisted hobby with her. Despite recognizing her as the daughter of the renowned councilman Kenji Shuga, Hashimoto is eager to toy with her. He confirms her identity once more, relishing the moment. Just as Shizuru starts to struggle, his phone rings. Hashimoto answers, asking for an update on Makoto's situation. To his surprise, Makoto's voice comes through, revealing that all of Hashimoto's henchmen have been eliminated. Seizing the opportunity, Hashimoto boasts about capturing Shizuru, which only infuriates Makoto further. Makoto warns Hashimoto to release her or face dire consequences, but the madman only mocks him in response. Hashimoto gleefully gives Makoto 40 minutes to arrive, threatening to live stream himself serving Shizuru like sushi if he doesn't. After instructing him to find their location, Hashimoto abruptly hangs up. Enraged, Makoto crushes the cheap phone in his hands. Hashimoto continues his disturbing hobby with Shizuru, planning to record a teaser video before the main event. He removes the tape from her mouth, but just as he is about to proceed, a knock sounds at the door. When he opens it, his guards inform him that a fire alarm has been triggered in the warehouse. Hashimoto quickly instructs them to disable the faulty alarm to avoid an unexpected visit from the police. Choosing to manage the situation himself, he tells the guards to watch the door while he steps out to investigate the alarm. A few moments after he leaves, someone punches the guard so hard that it breaks down the door. Shizuru looks up to see if Makoto has come to save her. Just an hour ago, Funaki arrived at Makoto's address to deliver a letter of introduction to Ryuda, but he couldn't reach Makoto by phone. He double-checked the address to ensure he was in the right place. At that moment, he overheard someone telling Hashimoto that Makoto had returned home with his girlfriend. From the conversation, he learned that 6 assassins were waiting to ambush Makoto inside the house. He also saw them force an unconscious Shizuru into a vehicle. Funaki quietly observed the scene from a corner. Once the vehicle left with Shizuru, he hopped on his bike to follow, planning to send the coordinates to Makoto later. Upon arriving at a private mansion, Funaki finally managed to reach Makoto. He informed him about Shizuru's capture and the mansion's location. Makoto was taken aback and questioned how Funaki had gathered this information. Before the call, he had been interrogating one of the assassins for answers, beating him just enough to send him to the brink of death, then using a healing talisman to revive him for more torture. With no time to lose, Makoto asked Funaki to help rescue Shizuru. After making the request, he vowed to personally drag Hashimoto to the underground. This request prompted Funaki to trigger the fire alarm earlier, distracting Hashimoto from the room. He waited for Hashimoto to leave before confronting the guards who were complaining about their shitty boss. Funaki waltzed towards them like Aquaman, ignoring all their questions. It was then that he had attacked them, using the force from the attack to break down the door. Shizuru, who seemed to be out of it, had called Makoto's name, thinking he had come to save her. However, it was only Funaki carrying out Makoto's request to rescue her. Funaki hoists her up like a dead weight and bolts from the scene before Hashimoto can return. He reaches a door leading to the back garden where the car is parked and pushes forward, hoping to escape before anyone catches up. Just as he reaches for the handle, a bullet tears through his thigh. The impact sends him crashing to the ground with Shizuru in his arms. Even in pain, Funaki cushions her head with his hand before she hits the floor. Moments later, Hashimoto strides in, bragging loudly about his flawless shot. His henchmen also agree, clapping on cue like obedient puppets. Funaki's heart races as he wonders how they returned so quickly. Masking his panic, he greets Hashimoto as if they were old friends. Hashimoto, clearly enjoying the situation, bursts into laughter as he looks forward to dealing with the traitor. Refusing to surrender without a fight, Funaki steadies himself and boldly challenges him. Meanwhile, outside the mansion, Makoto arrives to settle accounts with the resident madman. The guards scramble toward the entrance, confused about who would dare approach the estate so boldly. Makoto, fueled by pure rage, doesn't bother acknowledging their existence. He casually punches his way through the entrance like a discount one-punch man, leaving the guards frozen in disbelief. They rush him all at once, clearly convinced numbers will somehow fix everything. Unfortunately for them, Makoto tears through the group with ease, swatting them aside like misplaced trash headed for the garbage bin. Within a few seconds, the courtyard falls silent. Standing among the defeated guards, Makoto loudly announces his arrival, embracing his role as the overpowered main character. Inside the mansion, Funaki is not having such a breezy time. Even though he has taken down quite a few henchmen, he seems to have reached his limit. Right about now, he silently wishes he had turned down Makoto's request to rescue a damsel in distress. Hashimoto, still feeling like the absolute king of the universe, boasts that he will turn Funaki into sushi and send him back to Makoto. Suddenly, his moment is ruined by the hefty front door being punched in. Makoto walks in like the Grim Reaper, announcing he has come to collect Hashimoto for Hades. Funaki is on cloud 9 now that his backup has arrived. Makoto hands him a healing talisman to help him regain his strength. Hashimoto orders his men to immediately take out the intruder. While Makoto stays behind to face them, Funaki picks up Shizuru and bolts out to complete his mission. Using the Cloud Shadow step, Makoto easily breezes through the raining bullets, swiftly taking down the henchmen one after the other. Meanwhile, Hashimoto watches in horror, wondering when the comical Flash made an entrance. Seeing that he may have underestimated his opponent, he tiptoes away from the scene like a useless wuss. Finally escaping from the chaos, Hashimoto scurries off like a scared little mouse, wondering why everyone referred to someone as powerful as Makoto as weak trash when he is clearly a dragon. He soon reaches a door and tries to input the password, but his nerves get the better of him. Suddenly, the bodies of a few henchmen fly into the room, signaling Makoto's presence. For the first time since he became an annoying terror, Hashimoto looks visibly terrified. He stammers, pleading with Makoto to calm down. He tries to intimidate him by mentioning his backing, but it doesn't seem to have any effect. Hashimoto, unlike his loyal henchmen, is a foolish coward. Just the sight of Makoto's overwhelming presence makes him reveal that Lord Aima is his employer. Makoto doesn't know who this so-called Lord Aima is, so he shoots Hashimoto a fierce look, urging him to keep talking. Hashimoto then reveals that Lord Aima is the heir of the Aima family. He says that basically this Aima dude is targeting Makoto because of a rumor that Makoto has cooked rice with Setsu. He further explains that Lord Aima plans to arrange a political marriage with the young lady of the Amatani family. Therefore, they want to take him out completely to prevent any future complications. Scanning through his memory, Makoto cannot find any memories of the original owner meeting privately with his fiancée. He guesses that someone else is trying to frame him. After recounting the whole thing, Hashimoto warns Makoto to let him go or suffer the consequences of going against such a powerful man as Lord Aima. Hearing this, Makoto reasons that this Lord Aima must be a fellow cultivator. Meanwhile, Hashimoto rambles like a broken record, promising to help if Makoto lets him go. Unfortunately, Makoto never goes back on his word, so he immediately punches the clown in the face so hard that the force breaks down the locked door. Inside the room, he finds a couple of girls locked up by the madman. Makoto immediately breaks their chains and drops his knife on the floor. Before leaving, he instructs the girls to do whatever they want to Hashimoto. As the girls surround him, Hashimoto offers to give them money if they let him go, but these girls have no use for money. They have already been to hell and back thanks to his wicked acts. With joyful tears mixed with pain, they relish sending him to the very hell he created. In the meantime, Makoto heads out to join Funaki. He applies a healing talisman on Shizuru, and then tells Funaki to leave before the police arrive. He had called the police earlier before coming to the mansion. He plans to head back home after safely handing Shizuru over to the police. Funaki asks him about his next plans, and Makoto reveals he will look into Aima and everyone else targeting him. He stops mid-sentence, realizing he might be outnumbered if he digs further into this whole conspiracy. After the whole Hashimoto melodrama, Makoto is back to his usual uneventful days. However, he is still bothered about the main mastermind. While throwing a few push-ups, he resolves to find the culprit and crush him as soon as possible. Soon, a knock on the door disrupts his training, and Makoto opens the door to find a messenger from Shizuru. He hands Makoto an invitation, along with a message that she will depart as soon as he is ready. Makoto stares at the invitation card curiously, wondering what her message means. After the messenger leaves, he calls Shizuru to ask why she also sent him a suit. She informs him that the invitation is from the Hoshisu family. Makoto is confused at this point, questioning why he needs to attend their party. Shizuru informs him that the Hoshisu family controls the biggest pharmaceutical group in the city. This means they need to get close to the family to market the Wonder Beauty pills. She also reveals that his ex-fiancée Setsu will be attending the party. This new piece of information greatly piques Makoto's interest. On the day of the party, Makoto arrives looking quite dashing. Shizuru quietly shows him Pierce, the general manager of Ace Group, and Taro, the board chairman of Kengo Group. She explains that they are big shots in the city's business landscape. Not knowing jack shit about the business world, Makoto wonders if they are also trying to get close to the Hoshisu family. Shizuru finds his comparison amusing, making her wonder why someone from a powerful family doesn't even know the basic power players in the city. She points out that most people here are desperate to build connections with even a relative of the Amatani family. According to Shizuru, they are especially looking forward to the arrival of the young lady of the Amatani family. Just then, the head of the Hoshisu family, Nana, arrives with the long-awaited Setsu trailing beside her. Makoto can sense spiritual energy radiating around this notorious ex-fiancée. He quietly studies her, wondering if she is a fellow cultivator. A lot of thoughts rush into his mind, making him wonder if this world has any special cultivation method he has yet to uncover. He notes that Setsu's spiritual energy is technically on display, and she doesn't even try to hide it. Since she might know Aima, he plans to ask her about it later. He then quietly stands beside Shizuru while she cheerfully greets Nana, the head of the Hoshisu family. Nana inquires about her mom's health, expressing her joy at Yoko's recent recovery. Shizuru thanks her, explaining that her mother is gradually returning to her old self. She then presents Nana with a Juyan pill as a gift from Yoko. Shizuru explains to her that they're the company's latest rejuvenation product. Nana, who seems to have heard about the Wonder Pill, excitedly blurts out the name. The nearby guests break into surprised whispers, discussing the outrageous price of the pill. Setsu immediately casts curious glances at the box. Nana examines the pill, expressing her appreciation for such a high-level spirit pill. She praises the person who refined the pills. Studying it further, she notes that it doesn't have any seals, making her ask Shizuru about its creator's identity. Shizuru immediately introduced Makoto as the pill refiner and her business partner. Both Nana and Setsu are surprised when Makoto introduces himself. Nana gleefully reveals that she used to carry him when he was a baby. She praises him for his skills and curses at the Yamori clan for being dumb enough to dump such a talented young man. Setsu immediately cautions her aunt to stop her from talking. She firmly explains that such a skill is useless to a noble family, adding that only one's cultivation level is useful. Setsu goes further, saying Makoto would have been ushered into the Amatani family if he had any useful cultivation. Hearing all these, Makoto finally realizes that the noble families of this world have already discovered cultivation. Nonetheless, it is still trash compared to the level practiced in the Liyue continent. After she finishes rambling, Makoto, subtly mocking him for being useless, Nana is still not convinced by Setsu's argument. She believes that Makoto has done something memorable by refining the Juyan pills. She then asks him about the master who taught him pill refinement. Makoto thinks about it for a second, and his mind wanders to someone from his past life. With no other options, he responds to her, saying he has no master. Makoto explains that he only took up pill refinement as a hobby. Right when he is about to ask them something important, some loudmouth struts in like a peacock on display, wishing Nana a happy birthday. The guests cast curious glances, wondering who he is. Someone chirps in that the loud guy is actually Joe Aima, the heir of the Aima family. A sense of dread fills Makoto as he comes face to face with his notorious pursuer. Sounding like some self-righteous arsehat, Lord Aima exchanges pleasantries with Nana. Like a classic lecher, his eyes soon land on Shizuru, and Nana introduces her to him. From his side eye, Makoto watches Lord Aima's greedy eyes, basically ogling Shizuru. Lord Aima then introduces himself to Shizuru, and like a perfect gentleman, he stretches his hand to shake hers. Already fed up with the whole scene, Makoto quickly grabs his hand, saying he has heard a lot about the famous heir of the powerful family. Lord Aima, pretending not to know Makoto, asks who he is. Although surprised by his pretense, Makoto wonders how long Lord Aima can keep pretending not to know him. According to his investigation, Aima is a cultivator, and Makoto wants to test that theory by using his spiritual energy to search for any trace of cultivation on him. Basically, cultivators can suppress this energy to hide their strength. The only exception is when they are unable to store spiritual energy, so the waves are never released. By releasing his own spiritual energy, Makoto plans to channel it into Aima's meridians to confirm if he is truly a cultivator. A few moments after searching, the result comes up empty, meaning Aima has no trace of spiritual energy in his meridians. This discovery surprises Makoto, making him wonder if Aima is not actually a cultivator. He soon forgets himself and grips Aima's hand too tightly, prompting him to quickly withdraw his hand in pain. Aima then hastily returns Makoto's greeting before ignoring him like sour milk to face Setsu. Makoto is still confused about why he couldn't sense any energy fluctuations on this dude. He didn't even feel any hint of killing intent in his brief exchange with Aima. Afterwards, everyone settles down to enjoy dinner. A butler soon announces that everyone should gather in the hall after their meal for a dance party. A few moments later, the dance party begins, but Makoto can't concentrate on anything. He has been thinking about Hashimoto and whether he lied about Aima being a cultivator. Meanwhile, Shizuru scans the hall for Makoto while avoiding countless invitations to dance. Someone even whispers to the last man she rejects that there is no way the daughter of the prestigious Suga family would dance with a nobody. He adds that Shizuru is high maintenance and that even powerful families struggle to gain her attention. While the dude is still rambling on about it, his friend points in the direction of Shizuru, basically begging to give Makoto her attention. The whole scenario of Shizuru inviting him to dance with her leaves everyone in shock, including Setsu. Somewhere outside, Aima heads to his car, and before entering, he warns the guards that no one is allowed to come near his vehicle. Inside the car, the guards can hear strange noises coming from inside. The guards start whispering among each other, wondering why he is always alone in the car with one of his bodyguards. Another dude chirps that all the chosen personal bodyguards of Aima eventually start acting strange and even end up not recognizing their own family. From their conversation, it is revealed that Lord Aima changes bodies every few days like tissue paper. Also, each swapped-out bodyguard usually acts like a totally different person. According to the rumors, one even disappeared completely. Meanwhile, inside the vehicle, the bodyguard slaps Aima, cursing at him for trying to hold another woman's hand in front of Setsu. Aima, with a panicked expression, frantically apologizes for messing things up. Suddenly, spiritual energy starts radiating from a ring on the bodyguard's finger. His face warps unnaturally, transforming into the real Lord Aima. He reveals that he only kept the fake double because of his slight usefulness. He then threatens to end the dude if he makes another mistake like today. A few moments later, Lord Aima steps out of the vehicle and invites two guards to follow him into the banquet hall. One of the guards stares suspiciously at the car, wondering what on earth happened to the other person inside. He notes that just like the rumors, a bodyguard always goes missing. Meanwhile, inside the car, the fake Aima has been bound and gagged. He struggles to free himself, but the ropes are tied way too securely. Soon, the fake dude bursts into tears, seeing that he can't escape his fate. Afterwards, the real Aima steps into the ballroom, pretending he didn't just pull off some serious alien shit in the car a few minutes ago. He cheerfully calls out to Setsu, but she is too engrossed with jealousy from watching her ex and his new beau dancing together. In fact, the whole hall seems to be focusing on Makoto and Shizuru. Aima follows her gaze to see what is holding her attention. Whispers erupt in the hall as people speculate about Makoto's identity. They wonder how anyone was able to conquer the notorious Ice Queen, Shizuru. Shizuru and Makoto seem to be drifting away in their own worlds. The music hits a crescendo, completely sending the duo to Cloud 9. Mesmerized by the romantic moment, Shizuru commends Makoto for being such an amazing dancer, leaving him utterly speechless. She praises him further for matching the energy of the party atmosphere. Shizuru explains that it is the only way they can get the Hoshisu family's attention for their plans concerning the rejuvenation pills. Makoto is happy to turn heads with his dance skills since the original owner already learned ballroom dancing before he was kicked out. Combining that skill with his sense of balance from cultivation, Makoto is an absolute beast on the dance floor. Nana, impressed by what she just watched, asks Setsu if she knew that Makoto could dance. Always the sore loser, Setsu simply mocks him for being a useless commoner despite his dancing skills. Nana teases her, pointing out that she caught her watching them so intently during the performance. Aima also joins the conversation, prompting Nana to ask if he truly doesn't know Makoto. Aima assures her that they are only meeting for the first time today. However, Nana finds this claim rather suspicious. She wonders how the heir of a powerful family has not learned about this widespread rumor. Aima, trying to throw her off, cooks up some flimsy excuse, which Nana completely ignores. She muses over Makoto's talent for pill refinement. From her tone, he senses that she is trying to raise Makoto to the next level. Aima is threatened by this, and he stares at her with a sinister expression. Aima curses Nana under his breath. He only lets her run wild because of Setsu. He then sets his sights on Makoto, also cursing him quietly. In the meantime, the two gossipy dudes from earlier have discovered Makoto's identity. Ignoring the fact that Setsu can literally hear them, they discuss the love triangle between her, Aima, and Makoto. The Silverhead mocks Makoto for throwing away the easiest way to level up. The blonde dude chimes in that the only path to redemption for the Yamori trash is for him to simp over Setsu. They also speculate that Makoto must be at this party to get closer to her. Setsu is fed up with all the trash talking and excuses herself from the table. Nana insists she stay longer, but Setsu claims she needs to rest. Instead of leaving quietly, she suddenly stops to confront Makoto. Makoto, clearly minding his own business, is confused by the whole scene. She barks at him like an angry Karen, warning him to discard his ugly thoughts about using her influence to restore the Yamori family. Makoto is even more confused and just stares at her as if she were an escaped loony. She turns to leave, telling him to use the money from pill refinement to focus on his life instead of trying to climb high places with a woman's influence. Makoto calmly questions her, asking which of them truly needs that advice. Setsu is even more surprised when he comments on her unstable spiritual energy. He had noticed earlier how it was leaking out due to poor control. According to Makoto, she likely forced herself to absorb spiritual energy to accelerate her cultivation. He warns her that such reckless methods only harm the body in the long run. Studying her closely, Makoto states bluntly that her body has already reached its limit. Still looking down on him, Setsu wonders how a nobody like him can correctly analyze her situation. Makoto then reveals that he can help her fix the problem, but Setsu refuses to believe him. However, he is unbothered since she stands to lose if she chooses not to believe him. Setsu cowers in fear when he warns her that she might be running out of time. He draws closer, offering to strike a deal with her if she can hand something to Ima for him. Meanwhile, Ima, seething with rage, watches them from a distance. After the party, Shizuru and Makoto run into Nana, who shows interest in the Juyan pill and invites them for a private chat. They walk through the garden together, and Makoto presses her for her real motives. Nana chuckles and asks him to call her auntie. Makoto refuses since he is no longer a member of the Yamori family. Hearing this, she remarks that he and Setsu are similar. Nana recounts that Setsu also lost her parents and became a puppet of the Amatani family. Her uncle is the puppet master, deciding even her marriage partner. Luckily, she was recognized by a prestigious martial arts family. With their backing, Setsu received the opportunity to become a legendary cultivator. Nana further adds that unless Setsu can transcend the realm of a commoner, she will remain a puppet for her family. This whole gibberish about cultivators is simply confusing for Shizuru. Makoto, on the other hand, understands that one can only transcend the realm of a commoner by entering the third stage of cultivation. In the cultivator's world, the gap between the second and third stages is extremely huge. This means it is very difficult to move to the third stage. Makoto reasons that this must be why Setsu decided to take such drastic measures to quickly advance her cultivation. He wonders why Nana is even telling him all these things in the first place. Nana sadly reveals that she has been trying to cure Setsu's condition, but none of her remedies seem to work. She further explains that she found renewed hope when she discovered Makoto's Juyan pills. Shizuru cannot believe that the president of the Traditional Medicine Association trusts Makoto more than actual doctors. Makoto quietly reflects on Nana's words and the legendary cultivation brouhaha. He also notes that compared to the Liyue continent, the cultivation techniques here are crude. Snapping him back to reality, Nana declares that she is also interested in the Juyan pill distribution. Shizuru is excited because with the Hoshisu family's backing, their profits will skyrocket. Nana jokes with her, stating that she only likes money. After joking around for a bit, she pleads with them to help Setsu. She informs Makoto that Setsu had tried to rebel after their engagement was annulled. Makoto is stunned to hear this news. Just then, Ima catches up to pay his respects to Nana before leaving. He extends his hand to shake Makoto, hoping they can meet again sometime. Makoto grabs his hand to shake him back. He feels spiritual energy radiating through Ima the moment their hands touch. Makoto finds this strange because he hadn't sensed anything during their first encounter. After the exchange, Ima heads to his car, and a guard informs him that Setsu dropped a gift for him. Ima, happy to hear this, quickly opens the box to find an origami butterfly, leaving him confused. Unable to comprehend its meaning, he tosses it over to fake Ima, warning him not to open it without his permission. Reflecting on his meeting with Makoto, Ima still considers him the same weak trash. He then twists the spirit liquid ring again, declaring war on Nana and Makoto. The energy from the ring glows, turning him into a splitting image of Makoto. He grins wickedly, declaring to use Setsu to destroy Makoto and Nana. The fake Ima trembles like a wuss, and none of them even notice the origami glowing. At the top of a tall building, Makoto brandishes a glowing replica of the origami butterfly in his hand. He smiles with satisfaction, promising to meet Ima again soon. It is revealed that the butterfly origami is actually a tracking talisman, and right now, Makoto is using it to track Ima's location. The talisman stops outside a building, signifying that it has found the target. Confirming that the building actually belongs to the Ima family, he immediately jumps off to carry out his plans. Elsewhere in the herbal garden, Nana quietly observes several spiritual plants. She focuses on 2 that are nearly ready for harvest. She plans to exchange them at the Cultivator's tournament in 3 months. Suddenly, she senses a strange presence nearby. A monk appears behind her and reveals that Nana was once the genius of the 100 Herb sect. Unfortunately, she suffered fatal injuries in the past that destroyed her cultivation. He praises her for still being able to sense spiritual energy. From his words, Nana realizes he is a cultivator. She has also sensed more than one presence in the room, meaning she may not be able to escape if she faces more than one opponent. Sensing her intent, another monk asks why she is planning to flee. He assures her that even if she resists, they will not allow her to leave unscathed. While cautiously speaking with them to learn their purpose, Nana slowly moves toward a large tree in front of her. One monk asks her to follow them without resisting. The other adds that it would be easier to simply break her limbs. As Nana reaches the tree, she activates a purple herb growing at its roots, called the Overlord flower. Soon, a poisonous gas spreads from the plant, filling the area. The monks struggle to breathe, but Nana has already placed a green heart grass in her mouth to neutralize the poison. The poison is powerful enough to knock out an elephant, so she plans to escape while the 2 baldies are busy. Just as she is about to leave, a sinister figure enters the room. Nana senses shadow arts and immediately knows the person belongs to the hidden shadow sect. The shadow reaches out and restrains her. As the figure steps closer, he confirms it is the same sect that destroyed the 100 Herb sect. Nana struggles and demands to know who he is. She says this day was not supposed to come yet, and there is no reason for the Shadow sect to reveal themselves now. Then she turns and freezes because standing before her is Makoto. However, it is only Aima disguised as Makoto. Back at the Aima family building, Makoto hides in the shadows as the guards head out for a shift change. They argue about what to eat and joke about whether Aima is enjoying some premium meal inside. Once they leave, Makoto appears using the Cloud Shadow step. He activates the tracking talisman to confirm he has reached Aima's room. Inside, the fake Aima slurps cold ramen while watching an old recording of himself. He wonders how his life ended up this miserable, being treated like a worthless servant just because he looks like Aima has pushed him to the edge. Thinking about the constant insults from the real Aima only makes it worse. Unable to resist, he opens the gift box and the talisman suddenly activates, nearly giving him a heart attack. He senses someone behind him and spins around, only to find Makoto standing there, making him fall in a panic. Makoto recognizes him as the first version he met at the party and asks if he remembers. The fake nods, terrified, and tries to throw around the Aima name. Makoto shuts that down quickly and demands to know where the real Aima is. Later that day, just along Makoto's usual route, a group of Aima's henchmen waits patiently for their big moment. On the phone, they confidently assure Aima that they will crush Makoto's limbs and deliver him like a takeout. Right on cue, one of them spots Makoto walking toward them. Makoto, meanwhile, is lost in thought, oblivious of their presence. He is still reflecting on his discovery that a spiritual vessel exists in this world. This leaves him wondering if a 4th-level cultivator is backing the nobles of this world. Basically, a spiritual vessel is a special tool infused with spiritual energy during its creation, granting it unique abilities. The stronger the spiritual energy used during forging, the higher the quality of the vessel. However, such tools can only be crafted by 4th-stage cultivators. Makoto believes that forging spiritual tools in this world is impossible due to its weak spiritual energy. However, he now has reasons to believe that the Aima family might actually have their very own personal spiritual spring. Makoto decides to resolve his beef with Aima before heading to Ryuta to find a spiritual spring. Just then, he finally looks up to notice the mob waiting for him. They casually inform him that someone paid big bucks to capture him, but Makoto is unbothered. He gives them a fierce look, instantly making the leader uneasy. Shaking off his fear, the boss orders his men to attack. They rush Makoto like a flock of hungry chickens charging at feed. The boss watches confidently, convinced he brought seasoned fighters. Seconds later, his confidence evaporates. Makoto moves effortlessly, rearranging faces, dishing rhinoplasties, and giving out free bone adjustments. In moments, the entire group is down. The boss can only stare in horror as Makoto slowly turns toward him, demanding to know who hired them. The next day, Setsu and her team work non-stop at Nana's house, trying to piece together what happened. One of the men shows her surveillance footage of 2 monks suddenly appearing. Although the video cuts off abruptly, the guard confidently concludes that Nana must have been kidnapped. He then shows another clip featuring a 3rd attacker, and Setsu freezes when she sees Makoto's face. Furious, Setsu immediately heads to Makoto's address. Outside the apartment, a bandaged man stops her and politely asks if she has an appointment. She ignores him, demanding to see Makoto. The injured man quietly leads her inside. As Setsu follows, she notices several rough-looking men tending to the garden. On the rooftop, Makoto is relaxing, while the mob boss from the previous day obediently serves him. In fact, all the bandaged men appear to be Aima's henchmen, who failed to ambush him earlier. Moments later, Setsu storms in, angrily demanding that Makoto release Nana. Makoto stares at her in confusion, unaware of what she is talking about. She accuses him again of kidnapping her aunt. When he still looks lost, Setsu pulls out a tablet and shows him the surveillance footage. Makoto immediately recognizes that the person in the video is using a spiritual vessel to impersonate him. He quickly realizes that Aima staged this to drive a wedge between him and Setsu. As Setsu begins releasing spiritual energy, preparing to fight, Makoto calmly tells her that he was never at Nana's house at 1 in the morning. To prove it, he tells her to question Aima's henchmen, and the revelation makes Setsu relax. The mob boss then shows her his chat history with Aima, explaining how they were hired to capture Makoto. Finally convinced, Setsu asks how they plan to explain the footage. Makoto responds by showing her a video he recorded earlier of the fake Aima. He did it to save evidence of Aima's schemes. Setsu watches the video as Yasuhiro confesses to playing Lord Aima's body double. He explains that he is usually just a guard, but he attended the party earlier as a stand-in. Yasuhiro reveals that Lord Aima uses a ring to impersonate anyone, a revelation that completely shocks Setsu. Makoto then explains to her the whole concept of spiritual vessels. He adds that Aima plans to have her eliminate him on the suspicion of Nana's kidnapping. Hearing this, Setsu angrily storms out to confront him, but Makoto stops her from blowing things up. He warns that Nana might be in danger if they make any rash moves. Setsu asks how he expects her to tackle the issue since she doesn't just plan to leave things as they are. Makoto lets her know that they can turn the tables on him using his own schemes. Elsewhere, the real Ima is busy testing out his powers while chatting with the same monks who abducted Nana, Setsu's aunt. One of the monks advises Ima that absorbing the vitality of the 100 Herb Sect remnants will give him the ability to fully control the shadow arts as a cultivator. Ima is wickedly excited to hear this because reaching the first stage of cultivation will help him secure a position within the Ima family's elder council. So he promises to help the monk join the Zen sect if their plan succeeds. This makes the chubby monk very happy as he thanks Ima for the offer. Moments later, Aima learns from the second monk that Makoto has been captured by the mob boss, and this news makes Aima very happy. He instructs them to send Makoto to the Kogen temple in one piece so that he can play with him a little before dealing with him right in front of Setsu to play the hero who found her aunt's abductor and score some brownie points. Right outside Kogen temple, Aima's head guard, Haragaya, is throwing his weight around, annoying his subordinates when Aima struts in like a proud peacock. Haragaya tries to butter him up, but Aima bluntly orders him to make all the guards throw away their communicators and bring the prisoner inside the temple to the foot of the mountain with him. Haragaya is surprised to hear this and asks why they have to throw away their communicators, but Aima furiously scolds him, making Haragaya hurry off in fear. Even though he leaves to carry out the orders, Haragaya is still puzzled and finds it a bit suspicious since Aima never addresses him by his name. A few moments later, Makoto is escorted into the temple with a suspicious-looking guard and taken to the courtyard to meet Aima, who is quite pleased with himself. Makoto questions why he was captured, but Aima simply taunts him for being too overconfident when they first met at the party. He then hurls insults, calling Makoto a worthless piece of trash for having the audacity to speak to Setsu in front of him at the party. Like every villain who talks way too much, Aima starts boasting like a chatterbox about some of his crimes and how he has been targeting Makoto everywhere, including sending the deranged Hashimoto after him. Makoto continues to indulge him and asks why Aima is taking things too far. Enraged, Aima replies that it's simply because a gutter trash like Makoto was Setsu's fiancé, which he considers a stain on his noble reputation. Like some deranged stalker, he further claims Setsu as if she were his very own personal trophy. Makoto, amused by this revelation, asks if that's the only reason Aima has been trying to murk him, but Aima clarifies that he plans to do more than just that. He immediately activates his powers to show off and summons a ghoul, proudly telling Makoto that trash like him can never wield such divine power. Makoto carefully studies it as he wonders if it's a type of summoning skill. Aima then explains that he plans to absorb Nana's shadow because her life energy is very rare. He believes absorbing it will make him a cultivator and a supreme being in the eyes of humans. Makoto then tells Aima to murder him already, but Aima lets him know that he's keeping that honor for Setsu, since, according to his plan, she thinks Makoto kidnapped her aunt Nana. Aima further reveals that he left the misleading footage on purpose and then shows Makoto how he changed his face to pin the blame on him. However, Makoto is not amused by this revelation and simply grins as if he was waiting all along for Aima to reveal this. Aima is disappointed by Makoto's mid-reaction, but the next moment Makoto breaks the ropes binding his hand and asks the guard who brought him in for confirmation on Aima's confession. The guard replies that he heard everything before removing his disguise, and to Aima's shock, the guard turns out to be Setsu as she burns hot at the revelation that her aunt's abduction was all Aima's doing. The pressure from Setsu's anger causes her spiritual energy to burst, making it suddenly snow. Aima is shocked by this, and seeing that his plans have been ruined, he tries to cook up a ridiculous story to salvage the situation. He tells Setsu to calm down, as he promises her that Nana is safe and further explains that he was just trying to play a cheap joke. He tries to retract everything he said earlier, but that only makes Setsu angrier as she demands he release her aunt. Setsu threatens to destroy Aima and his whole family if anything happens to Nana. Seeing that his plan to play the hero and impress Setsu has been exposed and ruined, Aima angrily scolds Makoto for playing him, but Makoto lets him know that he ruined everything himself by being a big mouth. Taunting him further, Makoto calls him a classic brainless villain, which enrages Aima. Once she calms down, Setsu tells Makoto to stand down since she's already contacted the Hoshisu family. She tells him that the situation is too complicated for a civilian like him to handle since Aima is a cultivator. Enraged that he just lost his girl thanks to Makoto's scheme, Aima orders the monks to murk him, but Setsu steps in to protect Makoto, pausing their attack. Aima tells her to think about the consequences of siding with Makoto and urges her not to stand in the way since her aunt's life is still in his hands. He threatens to murk Nana with just one phone call and tells Setsu to choose between her aunt and Makoto's life. Worry immediately fills Setsu's face as it dawns on her that she has to choose one. However, Makoto assures her that she has nothing to worry about because Nana has been secured by his people, and he then shows her a picture of Nana being rescued. Aima is shocked and furious to hear this and wonders how they were able to get past his tight security detail. He then proceeds to check the surveillance camera only to discover that Nana is no longer locked up. It turns out the Aima who met with Haragaya earlier was actually the fake Aima, Yasuhiro. After deceiving the guards and descending the mountain with Nana, Yasuhiro excused himself to make a call. Though he played the real Aima perfectly, he was still terrified that Haragaya would see through him. But after confirming that no one followed him, Yasuhiro sent a message to Makoto, telling him that their plan is progressing without a hitch. Aima is furious as he realizes that Yasuhiro betrayed him and played a part in ruining his grand plan. Setsu, on the other hand, is just surprised that Makoto planned so far ahead, and this makes her wonder if this is the same weak dude whom everyone considers trash. Still fuming with anger, Aima orders the monks to attack Makoto while he holds Setsu back. As the monks charge forward, Setsu tries to fight them, but Aima unleashes his power and uses it to bind her, making it impossible for her to move an inch. He then proudly tells her to watch as her beloved Makoto is hacked miserably by his monks. Refusing to let anything happen to Makoto, Setsu tells him to run, but Aima lets her know that it's useless. He also taunts her for being weak and unable to protect anyone. Aima's taunts get to Setsu as she starts blaming herself for underestimating him and putting Makoto in danger. But on the other end of the road, Makoto is completely unfazed as the monks charge towards him, determined to murk him. But to their shock, Makoto effortlessly grabs one of them by the head while crushing the other with his feet. With his cloud shadow steps, Makoto wipes the floor clean with the two baldies, leaving Setsu completely stunned by his powers. With that single kick, Makoto crushes the chubby baldy, while the other monk wonders how he isn't a match for Makoto, even with all his years of training and talismans. Unfortunately, before he can finish analyzing, Makoto suddenly appears behind him and finishes him with a single punch. Aima is stunned by Makoto's speed, as no ordinary human can move as fast as he did. At that moment, he realizes that Makoto might be a cultivator. Setsu is also surprised and wonders if Makoto is truly a cultivator. However, Makoto has no plans of playing Q&A, and as he inches closer to Aima, he reveals that he has been looking forward to meeting him. Makoto recounts how Aima has been targeting him, from locking him up in prison with an assassin to using Hashimoto as a hired gun. He also reveals how Aima kidnapped his friend, Shizuru, and murked his precious dog. While Aima is terrified as Makoto gets closer, oozing spiritual energy, Makoto adds that he has been looking forward to crushing him since Aima has been clinging to him everywhere like a pesky little fly. Regaining his composure, Aima decides to fight back even though Makoto might be a cultivator. He then activates what he considers the shadow arts and explains that he never planned on using them so soon because the price is too high. Once his power is activated, Aima uses it to suck the essence of the two monks lying lifeless behind Makoto and Setsu. Seeing how far the shadow art reaches, Makoto realizes that it has a transfer function and wonders if it was a technique created by the people in this world. Aima boasts that he will now make the monks a part of him since all he needs to complete the shadow art is to absorb one cultivator. But since there are two of them, Aima is over the moon that his power will go off the charts. After emptying the monks, he excitedly brandishes his newfound powers, claiming that he's now a legendary first-stage cultivator. But no matter how terrifying Aima's new digs look, Makoto remains unimpressed or moved by them. But Aima, believing that Makoto is no longer a threat, prepares to show off the extent of his new power. Setsu, on the other hand, is terrified of Aima's powers and blames herself for dragging Makoto into this mess. To save him, she barks at Aima, telling him to let Makoto go since the whole beef is because Aima is obsessed with her. But this only infuriates Aima, seeing his girl defend a trash like Makoto. Enraged, he ignores her plea and immediately attacks while Setsu screams for Makoto to run. However, Makoto refuses to budge as Aima's strike crashes into him, but to their shock, Makoto effortlessly dodges the attack, leaving Aima puzzled and wondering how he did it. Makoto then taunts Aima's trashy first-stage cultivation, revealing that it's mid, and with the snap of a finger, he unleashes a terrifying pressure, making Setsu realize that he's actually far stronger than Aima. With only a single kick, Makoto almost makes Aima puke out his gut. However, Aima refuses to back down and charges forward towards Makoto with another powerful attack, but Makoto easily dispels the attack. Aima then tries to absorb Makoto's essence while hurling insults at him for being a worthless trash who was expelled by his family. But even this doesn't move Makoto, as he dispels the attack and calls Aima's shadow art trash before punching his fist into the ground. With that single strike, Makoto captures the insect that was supposed to absorb his essence. Basically, the shadow art uses spirit insects as parasites to drain spiritual energy. But with a single snap, Makoto effortlessly crushes the insect, completely destroying Aima's so-called power. Aima is devastated by this and, like a wimp, cries out, questioning why a failure kicked out of a noble family is better than him. Refusing to be defeated by someone lower than him, Aima boasts about his family's power and even mentions that his great-grandfather is some powerhouse. He warns Makoto that his great-grandfather, who belongs to the Hidden Shadow sect, will definitely retaliate if anyone harms him. Hearing this, Makoto realizes that his earlier theory is true, and powerful cultivators truly exist in this world. Seeing the look on Makoto's face, Aima is pleased with himself, thinking he has succeeded in securing his safety. He begins to taunt Makoto again, but to his shock, Makoto starts edging closer, scaring him. However, Aima continues to throw his weight around, hoping Makoto will listen to his warnings. When the threat doesn't work, Aima realizes he has truly messed up, so he starts begging, asking Makoto to forgive him, but Makoto ignores Aima's plea and decides to end him by pounding him into the ground with a single powerful punch that almost blows Setsu away. After the dust dies down, Makoto informs Setsu that he received word that her Aunt Nana has been safely handed over to her family, the Hoshisu clan. Setsu thanks Makoto for helping and expresses her surprise that he's not an ordinary dude as she expected. However, deep down, Setsu feels like a fool for underestimating him and trying to play the hero. Makoto assures her that even though she didn't get him involved, he already planned to handle Aima alone. He reveals that he has already gotten what he came for and pulls off Aima's ring, which is a vessel of spiritual energy. Makoto carefully studies the ring and realizes that it's something only a 4th-level cultivator can craft. Setsu then asks him why he was kicked out of the Yamori clan even though he's clearly powerful. She explains that he could easily become the head of the family if he were to show only a fraction of that power. However, Makoto tells her that he wants nothing to do with the Yamori family anymore. He also explains that he can only be classified as strong when he reaches the 3rd stage of cultivation and further awakens his powers. Hearing this, Setsu makes up her mind to also work towards that goal, no matter what it takes. To do that, she plans to break free from the Amatani family control and become a true cultivator. After a moment of awkward silence, Makoto pulls out a pill to fix the problems with Setsu's body since he had initially promised to help her. He explains that it's a dispersing spirit pill that can release the rampant spiritual energy inside her body. However, Setsu is not too happy to hear this, because that would mean that her dream to become a cultivator will end before it even begins. Makoto tells her that her body is already flawed because of the training she received, and if she doesn't take the pill, her lifespan will be shortened. Despite the warning, Setsu still hesitates because taking the pill means she will return to being just an ordinary person again. But to her surprise, Makoto lets her know that it won't happen as she expects. He explains that taking the pill is only the next step to learning what real cultivation looks like. A few days later, Setsu arrives at Makoto's house with her luggage looking like a very pretty homeless wet puppy. She then shyly reveals that she brought her belongings and will be living with Makoto as planned. But the dumb Makoto, who has 0 romantic meter, is confused and bluntly asks Setsu why her face is all red. He wonders if it's a side effect of her problematic spiritual energy. Embarrassed, Setsu quickly replies that there's nothing wrong with her and immediately shoves him back inside. A few moments later, he shows her around the house and Setsu asks if he's going on a long trip. Makoto reveals that he is and explains that he doesn't know when he'll be back. Now that Aima is no longer on his heels, Makoto plans to head to Ryuda to search for the spirit spring. In the courtyard, Makoto tells Setsu about the Silverheart grass, which emits a mild spiritual energy. He urges her to train near it since it will be good for her body. He also promises to teach her a little about real cultivation before leaving and asks her to take care of the Silverheart grass and his dog while he's away. Setsu is delighted to see the dog, and she's even more surprised that a tough dude like Makoto keeps such a cute dog. When she asks him for the dog's name, Makoto is confused because he never thought of naming the dog. Setsu lets him know that having a name matters to every living being and advises him to choose a name. Without hesitation, Makoto decides to call the dog Roku, and the dog immediately barks as if recognizing the name. Makoto stares at the dog intently as he recalls a distant memory from his past life of the true Roku, whom the dog is named after. After freshening up that night, Setsu asks Makoto for her room, and he tells her to sleep in the guest room since he already cleaned it. Setsu then asks about his plans to handle the Aima family now that their heir is dead, but Makoto simply tells her that it has been handled. He reveals that no one will ever know of Aima's disappearance. Elsewhere in the Aima family, everyone gathers awaiting the arrival of their patriarch, and just as Makoto said, Yasuhiro has taken Aima's place in the family without anyone knowing. Even the head of the family, Tetsu, talks to him without sensing anything amiss as they all await the patriarch to come out of seclusion. But deep down, Yasuhiro is terrified. Just then, the gate opens, alerting everyone as Aima's great-grandfather, Takuzo, steps out in style, riding a terrifying beast, and apparently, he has been in seclusion for 5 years. Tetsu greets the old man and congratulates him on reaching the 3rd stage of cultivation. He even butters him up, calling Takuzo a legendary immortal, which greatly pleases Takuzo. When Takuzo notices Aima, he asks about the progress on handling Makoto. This terrifies fake Aima as he stammers, explaining that he failed to take out Makoto because he's useless and just ordinary. Takuzo is infuriated to hear this and lets Aima know that no one in their family is allowed to be weak. He threatens to take away Aima's place as the heir and decides to handle the situation himself. Takuzo then calls for 2 members of the Hidden Shadow sect, Jogo and Chikage, and orders them to bring him Makoto's head at all costs. Meanwhile, fake Aima is terrified when he hears this, realizing that their plans might soon be ruined thanks to the arrival of this powerhouse, Takuzo. The following day, Setsu complains to Makoto for waking her up too early to train because she's already used to her princess lifestyle. Makoto explains that spiritual energy is always at its peak early in the morning, which means they can get twice the result without stressing much. He then offers her a drink, and the moment Setsu takes it, chugs it down, she's surprised by its effect. Makoto tells her that it's just a simplified version of the pill he gave her, but it's better for her to take it in the form of a drink because the pill might be too overwhelming for her to take regularly. Since Setsu's body still needs gentle spiritual energy, Makoto made the drink by mixing a little of the pill with some veggies. Back in his former world, this recipe was used for underdeveloped babes, so Makoto did this because the human body in this current world is too fragile. Afterwards, he tells Setsu to get ready to head out as he plans to teach her about real cultivation. A few moments later, they end up in the park, and Setsu is embarrassed as people stare at them for being weirdos. She wonders if they have to train in the open, and Makoto explains that places like this, close to nature, are the best for getting spiritual energy. Soon, a couple of old geezers gather nearby, watching them and wondering if they're cultivating. Some of them even praise Makoto and Setsu as couples who indulge each other in their whimsical endeavors. Hearing this, Setsu burns red with embarrassment as she wonders how what they're doing looks like a couple activity. Makoto soon notices that she's distracted and calls her attention, instructing her to concentrate. He explains that she needs to gradually feel the spiritual energy around her instead of forcing it, which was what previously damaged her body. Makoto further adds that the human body has a function that normally protects it from spiritual energy. However, Setsu destroyed that function by forcing things on her own, which caused violent energy to be mixed into her body. He explains that cultivating spiritual energy is simply increasing the purity of the energy entering the body and making it invigorate the body. Makoto tells her that the only difference between the two of them is how they utilize that energy. While the cultivators of this world are able to utilize only about 40% of the total spiritual energy, Makoto's cultivation method can use 100% of it. Makoto continues to instruct Setsu, telling her to channel the spiritual energy through her mental power, which exists around the forehead. He then advises her to focus and sense it before absorbing the spiritual energy. However, as Setsu tries to practice the technique, she hits a block and starts sweating because of the mental block caused by her messy family ties. Even the old foggies watching them start getting worried, seeing her visibly sweating buckets. While still struggling, Makoto suddenly places his fingers on her forehead, startling her awake. He then brings his face closer and asks her to close her eyes and try again. Makoto instructs Setsu on how to use his mental power to sense the energy, but Setsu is too flustered by his near proximity to focus on anything he's saying. However, she closes her eyes while the old foggies from earlier blush watching the two of them. A few minutes later, Setsu finally gets the hang of it and begins to sense the spiritual energy around her using Makoto's mental power, which she finds mesmerizing. Makoto then explains that the spiritual essence in this world is thin, and that is why it can't be seen with the naked eye. After the exercise, Makoto shuts off Setsu's spirit platform and ends the training, after which he tells her that she can reach the Chi Refinement Stage 1 if she keeps sensing and absorbing the spiritual energy just as he taught her. Upon returning home, Setsu finds herself unable to stop thinking about how close Makoto's face was earlier during training. Frustrated, she decides to focus on training instead of petty matters of the heart. 1 week later, Makoto prepares to head to Ryuta for his quest to find the spiritual spring. He arrives at the location where he's supposed to get a ride, but doesn't see anyone, making him wonder if he came too early. After a week of training, Setsu was able to sense spiritual energy on her own, so Makoto left, hoping she could reach Stage 1 on her own. Besides, he believes that her current ability is sufficient to leave his precious roku and herbs in her hands while he's away. A few moments later, a bus pulls over, and Makoto boards it while the driver looks at him suspiciously as he wonders why a student is going to such a dangerous place. He then tells Makoto to sit wherever, and Makoto quietly studies his new surroundings before picking an empty seat to relax and wait for his adventure in Ryuta. Back in the city, Takuzo's henchmen, Jogo and Chikage, soon arrive, and Jogo announces that he already got Makoto's address, so all they need to do is take him out. He grins wickedly as he looks forward to enjoying this mission because it has been almost 30 years since he last had this type of fun. Elsewhere, Shizuru finds herself thinking about Makoto while fiddling with the talisman bracelet he gave her. Makoto had given it to her for protection while he was preparing to leave. He had carved talismans into the beads and instructed her on how to use them in case she was in any danger. Just then, Shizuru's assistant, Ogata, calls out to her, ending her train of thought. She explains that she has been talking, but noticed that Shizuru was more interested in the bracelet than their conversation. Ogata then teases her about the bracelet, pointing out that she must like it so much because it's from Makoto. Flustered, Shizuru threatens to send her to mine in Africa for teasing her, causing Ogata to beg for her dear life. Meanwhile, it has been 6 hours since Makoto's departure, and he quietly studies everyone in the bus. Suddenly, the bus halts abruptly, causing the passengers to bark at the driver for driving recklessly. Just as the driver assures them that the bus is safe, the door is violently forced open by a group of hoodlums carrying machetes. Realizing that the hoodlums work for a man named Hanadate, the driver tries to tell them that the bus is under the protection of a mob boss named Kameguchi, but before he can finish, one of them stabs him, causing an uproar amongst the passengers. He then orders everyone to get off the bus and reveals that they're searching for someone. He also threatens to end anyone who refuses to cooperate with their inspection. Meanwhile, Makoto quietly watches the commotion and has already figured that they're searching for the hooded dude with a briefcase. Makoto keeps his head down, not wanting to be dragged into another mess, but one of the hoodlums suddenly notices him and orders him to stand up. He finds Makoto suspicious and commands him to hand over his bag for inspection, but Makoto doesn't respond. So, the leader of the gang orders the dude to simply take out anyone who refuses to cooperate instead of wasting time. The dude then brandishes his machete as he prepares to swiftly finish Makoto, but to his shock, he finds the seat empty, leaving him confused. Suddenly, a soft breeze blows behind him, but before he can figure out what's happening, Makoto appears from the shadows and takes him out with a single punch. He then taunts the remaining to come at him at the same time, but before they can even land a strike, Makoto annihilates every single one of them and even beheads one with his bare fist, leaving their hooded target completely stunned. After piling out the corpses of the hoodlums from the bus, one of the passengers tries to repair the vehicle, but realizes it's damaged beyond simple repairs. Another one curses under his breath, realizing they're stranded in a dangerous forest with no signal or a way to escape if a wild, dangerous beast appears. The passengers soon begin to panic, while Makoto quietly observes the whole scene from afar, planning his next move. Even though he can get out of the forest alone, Makoto is worried that he needs a new guide to help him get to Ryuta. Suddenly, the hooded dude from earlier calls out to him and offers to be his guide in exchange for his protection. However, Makoto bluntly refuses the offer, but the dude refuses to back down and tries to bargain. But Makoto suddenly reveals that the hoodlums earlier were targeting whatever is inside the briefcase, so he has no right to be negotiating with him. Makoto then gives him a terrifying glance, causing the dude to swallow his words. Still, the hooded dude stops Makoto from leaving and takes off his disguise, revealing that she was a woman all along. She then introduces herself as Fuyu and tells Makoto that his purpose for going to Ryuta must be something unrelated to money. She confidently takes out a small vial containing spirit liquid and shows it to him, asking if that is what he's searching for. A few moments later, a couple of Land Rovers arrive at the scene, making the passengers happy that someone from Kameguchi's camp must have come to save them. However, when one of the passengers approaches the vehicle, a shot rings out, taking him out. Afterwards, the boss, Hanadare, steps out of the car, proudly informing the passengers that Kameguchi is not coming to save them. Just then, the only surviving hoodlum from earlier is brought to meet his boss, and he apologizes to Hanadare, who simply asks about Fuyu's whereabouts. The bruised-up dude replies that he doesn't know, and explains that someone single-handedly took down his comrades. Hanadare finds it hard to believe and threatens to end him if he's telling a lie. But one of the passengers confirms the story and even offers to show Hanadare Makoto and Fuyu's escape route if he helps them out of the forest. Hearing the sweet deal, more and more passengers happily offer to serve as witnesses, and one of them reveals that the hooded dude was actually a woman because he could tell from her smell. Hanadare is pleased to hear all this and urges the passengers to keep talking. One of them confidently points towards where Fuyu and Makoto left earlier, but he mentions that they may already have been devoured by wild beasts. One of Hanadate's men tells him that Fuyu must have gone into the next town to see someone named Kunieda. Hanadate immediately orders his men to head to the next town while the passengers frantically beg him to help them since they gave him the information, but Hanadate signals to his men to end everyone. As his henchmen turn to face them, the passengers begin to tremble, realizing the consequences of making a deal with the devil. While shrill screams from the passengers fill the forest, Fuyu and Makoto arrive safely in town. Fuyu then warns Makoto not to use his power unless it's absolutely necessary, and when he asks why, she explains that it's to avoid drawing unwanted attention. Fuyu also explains that it's to protect Makoto's identity, because his power will make it clear that he knows the secret behind the spirit water, which would make him a target. Makoto agrees to keep his powers hidden, and just then, Fuyu notices Kunieda, the old guide she's searching for. Kunieda happens to be a guide who provides transport for people heading to Ryuta. Fuyu asks him if he can quickly help them get Ryuta, and Kunieda lets her know that he already has a transport ready to leave town. Fuyu then explains to Makoto that Kunieda is quite influential and knows the safest route to Ryuta. She reassures Makoto that he can be trusted since he has also helped rescue people from Ryuta before. Kunieda tells them to head inside his shop and wait a little, but before they can move, a group of gamblers arrives, demanding that Kunieda repay his outstanding debts. They even threaten to confiscate his transport vehicles, which were used as collateral. Hearing this, Makoto becomes weary, sensing that things might get complicated again. Kunieda tells the boss, Yamai, that he's busy and begs him to come back later, but Yamai refuses to leave until he gets the money. Fuyu is confused by the whole situation because she knows that Kunieda hates gambling and would never use his cars as collateral. Kunieda then barks at Yamai for deceiving him when he was down. Apparently, Kunieda needed money, so Yamai backed him into a corner and forced him to borrow from a loan shark. However, Yamai is not remorseful as he reminds Kunieda that he signed an actual contract. He reveals that Kunieda borrowed 10 million yen from his gambling hall to treat his wife. Hearing this, Fuyu worries that she's out of time, and if Kunieda's car is confiscated, they might be sitting ducks waiting for Hanadate, so she offers to pay off the loan. Kunieda tries to stop her, but Fuyu refuses to back down because she's in a hurry, so she tells him to pay her back later. Yamai then pulls out the contract as he reads out the ridiculous terms of the loan contract, especially the outrageous interest rate, which increases every day. Since it has been 15 days since Kunieda borrowed the money, Yamai wickedly reveals that he has to repay them 130 million yen. Fuyu is furious to hear this, while Kunieda protests about the terms, which he has never heard of before. However, Yamai remains unfazed and proposes they settle it with a gamble if they can't repay the money. He explains that the debts will automatically be cleared if Fuyu can win against their master dealer, William. Kunieda tries to talk Fuyu out of it because William is the most powerful dealer in the gambling hall. However, Yamai further entices her into making the deal and adds that Kunieda's debt will be doubled if Fuyu loses. Fuyu considers the difficult offer because if they don't settle the loan, the car will be taken and her journey to Ryuta ruined. Even though she knows it's a trap, Fuyu believes she can win just by listening carefully to the sound of the dice because when she was little, she trained her hearing using dice. Believing the game will certainly be in her favor, Fuyu confirms the terms of the bet again. Kunieda tries to stop her, but she has already made up her mind, and Yamai confirms that he will forget the debt if she wins. A few moments later, the group settles for the game as each side remains determined to win by skill or crook. Meanwhile, Makoto, who has been quiet the whole time, knows that the whole game is rigged against Fuyu, and he knows that William is no ordinary gambling prodigy. Makoto's analysis was spot on because William has been gambling since he was still in diapers, so his skills are incredible. William believes that winning a dice game against an amateur like Fuyu is easy, as long as he has the secret button from his master, which he wears on his sleeves. The game soon begins as Fuyu rolls the dice and William asks her to choose first between even and odd. Yamai and his henchmen taunt her, telling her not to complain if she loses, since she's the one throwing the dice. However, Fuyu is confident as she reminds them not to laugh too early before focusing on her hearing to count the dice. The moment the dice hit the table, she could tell from the sound what they were, so she chose even, while William casually picked odd. Once she opened it, the total number turned out to be even, making Fuyu confident in her skills. This also reassures Kunieda that Fuyu can win the next one, but Yamai and his boys remind them not to celebrate too soon. William then tells Fuyu to roll the dice again, and she does, but this time more confidently, as she reminds them to keep their promise. As soon as the dice hits the table, she confidently chooses odd, and William grins as he prepares to choose while fidgeting with his sleeve, which alerts Makoto that the game is about to be rigged. Afterwards, William chooses triples while smiling like he just won the lottery, but Kunieda finds this odd because the chances of triples are low. Confident in her skill, Fuyu opens the cup, hoping to win, but to her shock, she finds 3 sixes just as William predicted. At that moment, she loses confidence in herself as she wonders if she misheard the sound of the dice earlier, but Makoto stares at them, knowing William controlled the numbers later. William then urges Fuyu to play the last round, and as she does, Fuyu concentrates so she doesn't get it wrong again. However, when the dice hits the table, she loses confidence in herself, but after a little hesitation, she chooses odd. Yamai's men find this amusing as they start taunting her and boasting about William's skill. Meanwhile, William grins because he's the only one who knows that it's not just skills, but thanks to his other secret, he has basically become some supreme being of gambling. William then chooses even, which only makes Fuyu doubt herself even more. But just as she's about to open the cup, Makoto stops her, making Yamai's men annoyed. Makoto declares that he'll be taking the last round, leaving William puzzled. Fuyu tells Makoto that William is not ordinary, and Makoto agrees and lets her know that William is just like him. Fuyu is stunned as she realizes that William might also be a cultivator. Sensing that Makoto might be trying to ruin their game, Yamai barks at him to back off and refuses to let them switch players. However, Makoto raises the stakes by flinging his card containing over 2 million yen on the table. Yamai, who is a money grubber, immediately swallows his words and agrees to let Makoto take the last round. Once again, he declares that Kunieda's debt is cleared if Makoto wins, but warns that they must pay double if they lose, including the 2 million yen. Once the situation is cleared, William still chooses to go with it, even while Makoto shockingly chooses triples, and not just any triples, but odd triples. This makes William and his men laugh at him because that is even more impossible than the normal triples. Kunieda and Fuyu also try to talk Makoto out of it, while William asks if he's sure about his choice. Makoto confidently stands by his choice and asks if they can continue. After telling Makoto to open the cup, William starts fidgeting with the secret button on his sleeve again. He grins as a faint glow of spiritual energy, which is invisible to the human eye, emits from it towards the cup. Basically, William can use the energy from the button to move anything within 50 meters, so changing the dice numbers is very easy for him. After making sure that the win is in the bag, William urges Makoto to open the cup, but to his shock, it turns out to be odd triples, just as Makoto predicted. Everyone is stunned by the sudden turn of events, and one of Yamai's men even accuses Makoto of cheating. William is even more outraged and accuses Makoto of cheating, but Fuyu reminds him that he also won the last round with triples. Refusing to back down, William tells her that no one can roll triples as long as he's involved, and without realizing it, he unfortunately shoots himself in the foot by revealing that he can change the dice numbers. Seeing that he has William exactly where he wants him, Makoto chuckles and questions him about it before revealing that William has been controlling the dice with the button on his sleeve. However, he points out that William's little trick of switcheroo is quite laughable. William is stunned by this as he wonders how Makoto discovered his secret. Yamai, on the other hand, is pissed and questions why Williams lost the game. Fuyu is furious and barks at them for trying to rig the game, but Williams remains unfazed and refuses to take his L like a king. Like a sore loser, William decides to show them what happens when they cross him. He uses the spiritual energy from his secret button to attack Makoto with several small daggers. But to his shock, Makoto swiftly dodges and grabs him by the neck in the blink of an eye, leaving everyone stunned. Makoto then reminds William about their deal and demands them to hand over Kunieda's contract. William barks at Yamai, asking him to hand over the contract, but when no one responds, he shouts again with pure fear in his eyes. Yamai is confused by this as he wonders who Makoto is and why William is so terrified of him. But when William asks him if he wants to die, Yamai agrees to hand over the contract, realizing that the situation is more serious than he thought. After collecting the contract, Makoto slams William to the ground and sternly warns him to disappear with his cronies. William hurriedly agrees while still trembling like a wet puppy. While watching them leave, Fuyu asks Makoto what he did to make William so terrified, but Makoto tells her that he did nothing. Meanwhile, Yamai's guys are also wondering why William was shaking like a fish out of water, as they believe that Makoto can never take them on by himself. However, William continues to tremble as he wonders how Kunieda met such a terrifying person as Makoto. He stares intently at his ruined sleeve and wonders how Makoto was able to destroy his secret button, which even a bomb cannot break. William hurries off like a scared cat and promises himself never to come back. Meanwhile, somewhere outside Ryuta, Hanadate and his goons set up camp to wait for Fuyu. He asks one of his men about the preparations, and the dude assures him that Kunieda's convoy will surely pass this route on their way to Ryuta. He then grins wickedly as he stares at a weapon box that cost him a fortune, and he intends to use it to wipe out everyone on board the convoy. The following day, Kunieda thanks Makoto and Fuyu for helping him against the loan sharks. Fuyu assures him that he's the one helping them since they would have been stranded without his car. She also thanks Makoto for stepping in to prevent William from cheating, but Makoto lets her know that he also did it for the car. Kunieda then boasts about his cars and how he has been arranging transport to Ryuta for over 50 years. He even offers to drive them there himself, but Fuyu reminds him that he's no longer a stallion. Shortly after, Kunieda's convoy prepares to leave, and he bids them farewell as the vehicle departs. As soon as they leave, Makoto asks Fuyu why she left Ryuta in the first place, since it's her home. Fuyu explains that she did it to take out the briefcase in the place of someone named Satoshi. She further explains that Hanadate is targeting her because of what's inside the briefcase. When Makoto asks what's inside the suitcase, Fuyu tells him that she doesn't know and simply says it was entrusted to her by a cultivator. Somewhere in the same truck, some hooded dude named Chino tries to score some points with his companion, Rei, an heiress to the Ryuto group. Chino tells Rei to be wary of the people on the bus because they're just a bunch of dangerous lowlifes. Rei is stunned to hear this and wonders how Chino can tell someone's character just by looking at them. Chino confidently boasts that he's the successor to some secret cultivation style, which makes it possible for him to see through people's hearts. He then proceeds to tell what he thinks about their fellow passengers and paints everyone black, including a sweet old granny whom he reveals is a swindler. He also calls Fuyu a noisy, troublemaking bum. Rei studies everyone quietly and questions Chino's analysis because they simply look like ordinary people to her, but Chino assures her that he's the only one she can trust to help her find the legendary cultivator. He continues to boast that his master was a cultivator from Ryuta, which is why he's helping Rei out of the goodness of his heart. But unbeknownst to Rei, Chino is actually just a swindler who is trying to get close to her because her family's Ryuto group is the top conglomerate in the country. He doesn't even believe that cultivators exist and is convinced that Rei and her sisters are easy targets, so he plans to deceive them and score big. Meanwhile, his plans seem to be going well as Rei excitedly praises him and looks forward to meeting the so-called legendary cultivator. However, Chino is worried and wary of Makoto's presence. Makoto has kept his eyes closed the whole ride, but Chino feels threatened by his calmness and suspects he might be one of Kunieda's associates. Chino scoffs, wishing he could get a chance to show off to Makoto, and as if the universe sensed his wish, a tree suddenly falls in front of the convoy, derailing one of the trucks. The rest of the trucks also stop abruptly, making everyone panic as Hanadate and his goons emerge from the bushes with machetes. They then order everyone to step down while Hanadate's right-hand guy confirms that the convoy belongs to Kunieda. He assures Hanadate that Fuyu is definitely inside with the guy who helped her escape. Unfortunately, he didn't see Makoto's face, but assures Hanadate that they can identify him by searching all the passengers one by one. A few minutes later, the leader of the convoy tries to reason with Hanadate and offers him a cigarette as he mentions that the convoy belongs to Kunieda. But Hanadate's dude slaps the cigarette out of his hand and warns the man to bring out all the passengers. Before the convoy leader can protest, Hanadate severs one of his ears. Seeing the bloody scene, some of the passengers immediately begin to panic, knowing that the gang means business and they might all end up as sausages in the end. The convoy leader screams in pain, but Hanadate warns him not to even squirm and threatens to finish him off if he makes a sound. Just then, a shriek rings out from the last truck as some of the gangsters harass Rei, tearing off her cloak. Seeing how pretty she looks, they light up like predators who just found prey. Rei calls out to Chino for help, but he hides in the background, refusing to play hero for any damsel. Meanwhile, Makoto quietly studies the situation, and Fuyu tells him to lie low since the gangsters have guns, and a cultivator can't be faster than a bullet. Makoto realizes that the gangsters must be part of the group that attacked their bus the last time. In the meantime, the sweet old lady whom Chino swore was a swindler defends Rei and mocks the gangsters for picking on a girl. Rei calls out to Chino again, reminding him that he's supposed to be the descendant of a cultivator. She also reminds him that he took money from her father to protect her. Still trembling, Chino quietly prays that Rei shuts up before she draws any unwanted attention to him. Unfortunately, Hanadate has already heard them and finds it amusing that Chino is a cultivator. He decides to test out the theory by making Chino take a bullet, but Chino hurriedly falls to his knees, trembling like a wet puppy. He explains that he's no cultivator and accuses Rei of framing him. Rei is surprised to hear this and explains that Chino is supposed to be a cultivator, and he claimed he would help her find the legendary cultivator who can cure her grandfather's illness. Chino barks at her to stop talking and reveals that he's just a con artist. He then tells Hanadate that Rei is loaded and they can get a fortune from her family if they abduct her. Rei is devastated as she realizes that she's been played for a fool. Although Hanadate loses interest in the whole game, his attention is suddenly drawn to Makoto, who had been trying to remain undetected. He points the gun straight at him and tells Makoto to get on his knees and beg for his life. Without any warning, Hanadate fires the shot, but Makoto remains unfazed. Everyone jumps out of the way except for Fuyu, who jumps right in front of Makoto, shielding him from the bullet. Before Makoto can react, the bullet hits Fuyu, leaving everyone shocked that Hanadate actually tried to murk someone. Makoto, on the other hand, is more surprised that Fuyu tried to protect him. Fuyu musters up her last strength as she tells him that she did it to repay the favor. She then apologizes for not finishing her mission, but before she can draw her last breath, Makoto heals her right there and assures her that she can't die on his watch. Fuyu is stunned as she immediately recovers from the shot while Makoto, now pissed, prepares to keep everyone alive. Hanadate is stunned by the whole scene, and after confirming that Makoto is truly an immortal cultivator, he grins wickedly, wondering what it would be like to murk a legendary immortal. Unfortunately, his smugness doesn't even last for more than a second because before he can take another shot, Makoto swiftly shatters the bones in his right hand, leaving him screaming like a wimp. Afterwards, Makoto assures him that he'll be able to experience what it feels like dealing with a true cultivator, while Hanadate falls to the ground screaming in pain. Meanwhile, Chino is stunned that cultivators actually exist, so he decides to escape before Rei remembers him. He also plans to run as far as he can because Rei's family will probably hunt him down. In the meantime, Hanadate orders his crew to finish Makoto, but before they can even move a muscle, Makoto effortlessly sweeps through, taking them down like a wrecking ball. Suddenly, one of them starts shooting at Makoto from a battle tank, but Makoto easily dodges the bullets and with a single strike, effortlessly destroys the tank as if it were built with Legos. This immediately makes the remaining henchmen tremble, making them wonder how they're supposed to go against a monster like that. Seeing they have no shot at taking down Makoto, Hanadate's right-hand dude wonders if it's time to take out his newly acquired weapon. Unfortunately, before he can even finish that line of thought, Makoto quietly appears behind, finishing him off. Somewhere nearby, Chino shrieks when he hears the shout from Makoto's latest victim. Soon, he finds himself in Hanadate's camp and decides to look for a car for his escape. Suddenly, he trips on a box and falls face down to the ground. Instead of continuing his escape, Chino's greed gets the better of him, so he decides to check it out, and it turns out to be a brand new rocket launcher. He quickly closes the box and decides to escape first before anyone catches up to him. But just as he starts to walk away, Chino stops in his tracks again and turns to stare at the box while weighing his next move. Meanwhile, back on the road, Hanadate's men have been cleared out except for him. The moment Makoto comes closer, he starts to tremble, but still manages to mouth off threats. He boasts that no one can murk him because he has many powerful backers, but Makoto remains unmoved, as this reminds him of another loudmouth who tried to show off in front of him. Ignoring the pest, Makoto places his palm on Hanadate's forehead and reminds him that he's nothing but worthless trash before using spiritual energy to finish him. Once the dust settles, Fuyu happily joins Makoto while Rei quietly watches him, wondering how someone as ordinary as Makoto is the legendary cultivator. Makoto, on the other hand, is just relieved that the drivers are okay, so he urges Fuyu to get back in the truck so that they can continue their journey. But another trouble brews as Chino wickedly prepares to launch a rocket attack against Makoto for no special reason. Without warning, he launches the rocket, confident that he can finally show off by taking down the so-called powerful Cultivator. As the rocket heads straight for Makoto, everyone holds their breath while Chino celebrates. But the next moment, his jaw drops as Makoto swiftly moves using cloud shadow steps and effortlessly catches the rocket in his palms using spiritual energy. Everyone is completely stunned, watching Makoto treat an actual rocket like a peanut. They question if a human can actually do that, but at the second stage of cultivation, Makoto can even withstand a frigging missile. After withstanding the impact of the rocket, he uses spiritual energy to wrap it while rotating it counterclockwise to increase air resistance, before coating both hands in energy to catch it. However, instead of stopping there, Makoto forcefully sends the rocket back to the launcher, and it is at that very moment that Chino knew he should have just left instead of trying to play Megamind. Unfortunately, before he can change his mind, Chino is completely blown to pieces. Afterwards, Fuyu rushes over to check on Makoto and hovers around him like a mother hen. Makoto assures her that he only got a small scrape on his hand, but Fuyu finds it hard to believe that someone who caught a rocket with his bare hands is just fine. Meanwhile, the passengers are still in disbelief as they debate whether the whole rocket scene happened or if it was just an expensive illusion. But after the debate, panic sets in as they realize Makoto might be the reason they got dragged into such a dangerous situation in the first place. Suddenly, they turn against him and refuse to let him travel with them to avoid any further troubles, but the leader of the convoy barks at them to shut up. He explains that they have no right to kick Makoto off the truck since he's a friend of Kunieda and the convoy belongs to Kunieda. He also reminds them that they would all have been wild beast meat if Makoto hadn't stepped in. Since he's in charge and the convoy can't leave without his permission, the man plops to the floor, refusing to move until everyone agrees. Realizing they're actually at a disadvantage, the passengers immediately agree to let Makoto continue with them. One of them even points out that they're definitely safe with Makoto as their backer. Still, someone tries to complain, but Fuyu confidently assures them that she can guarantee their safety in Ryuda. She asks if anyone knows about the Bokudo Society, which was once famous for being the top hat in Ryuda. Everyone confirms that they know about it, and the current boss is the son of the previous leader of Ryuda. Apparently, the boss of Bokuto is the famous Satoshi, who is also known as the Devil of Ryuda, and he once wiped out the 5 major factions and took back the territory. Fuyu then assures everyone that no one will attack them in Ryuda because Satoshi is actually her biological brother. Meanwhile, back in the busy streets of Ryuda, a fight suddenly breaks out as 2 brothers, Yosuke and Koya, who happen to be members of the Bokuto Society, wipe the floor clean with a couple of rival gang members. The beaten-up gang members complain about it, reminding them that this marketplace is not their turf. This only enrages Yosuke, and as he tries to give them another beating, Satoshi, the boss of the Bokuto Society, gently stops him. He then tells the gang members that they can't do business here without permission, and worse, selling drugs is strictly forbidden. The moment the gang members see Satoshi, they begin to tremble, but one of them fearfully reminds him that he can't touch them because they're Kamiguchi's men. However, Satoshi is not concerned and quietly tells the dude that he doesn't give 2 cents about Kamiguchi. Seeing the sinister look on Satoshi's face, the gang member begins to tremble while people nearby start scrambling for their dear lives. After taking care of the gang members, Yosuke asks Satoshi about Fuyu since they haven't heard from her in 2 days. Koya warns him not to jinx her safety with his mouth, and soon the 2 boys begin to bicker like teenagers until Satoshi breaks them apart. He assures them that Fuyu is fine and he came out because he received a message that she will be arriving soon. With that, the trio happily heads to the station to pick her up. Meanwhile, Makoto is awakened by Fuyu's voice just as they arrive at Ryuda. She tells him that they have to proceed on foot since cars are not allowed to go through. After getting off the bus, Fuyu shows Makoto the guarded gate of the city as she welcomes him with a smile. Inside the gates, a group of guards guides the people inside, and close by, some blonde dude butters up Fumiya, one of Kamiguchi's henchmen. After listening to the cheap praises, Fumiya tells his boys to play as much as they want and put it all on his tab. Just then, the blondie calls Fumiya's attention to Kunieda's convoy, and Fumiya notices Rei as his newest prey. Meanwhile, Fuyu hands Makoto the vial of spirit liquid to conclude their deal. Makoto studies the vial closely and realizes that the liquid is different from the one he got from the assassin, Funaki, because this one is less potent and contains more impurities. Before he can ask Fuyu any further questions, her attention is drawn towards Fumiya, who is about to cause trouble. The head of the convoy asks Fumiya to let them through since they've already paid the fee for the month. Fumiya agrees, but tells him to leave Rei behind so that he can check her thoroughly. The convoy leader tries to step in, but Fumiya slams him to the ground. Rei rushes forward to check on the man while Fumiya barks, throwing his weight around. He then orders his men to capture everyone from the convoy, but Fuyu steps in. Even though he recognizes Fuyu as Satoshi's sister, Fumiya refuses to back down and reminds her that her father is dead, so their society doesn't carry much weight anymore. He confidently tells Fuyu that Ryuda now belongs to Kamiguchi and not the Bokuto Society. Fuyu reminds him that they still have Satoshi, but Fumiya simply laughs. telling her that Satoshi can never set foot in Kameguchi's territory. But before he can finish the sentence, a katana suddenly lands in front of him, almost slicing him in half. Just then, Satoshi's voice rings out from behind, demanding to know when he became a coward. After his show of power, Satoshi's face immediately lights up as he welcomes Fuyu back. While the two siblings reunite, Makoto studies Satoshi, Yosuke, and Koya as he realizes that one of them carries a thin veil of spiritual aura. He figures it's from taking spiritual liquid and notices that it might be Satoshi who has power close to a Stage 1 cultivator. In the meantime, Fumiya is still trembling from the near-death experience as he scolds Satoshi for picking a fight on Kameguchi's territory. Satoshi calmly explains that he only came to pick up his sister before edging closer to warn Fumiya that he's not afraid of trash like Kameguchi. Afterwards, Satoshi changes his face again as he happily heads towards Fuyu, leaving Fumiya trembling. Yosuke also does the same after warning Fumiya not to mess with him, but this only infuriates Fumiya. He vows revenge and immediately prepares to start a full-on gang war. Fuyu warns him to back off, but Fumiya refuses to give up the opportunity to take down Satoshi. As the gang members charge forward, Satoshi unsheathes his sword with just the flick of his finger. The hilt of the sword takes down the blondie from earlier before Satoshi swiftly takes down a few more of Fumiya's men. Makoto studies Satoshi's movement and notes that he's only moving at about 20% of the speed of the Cloud Shadow Step. After taking down the small fries, Satoshi prepares to take down Fumiya next, but suddenly a cane comes flying towards him, so he deflects the projectile, sparing Fumiya's life. Immediately after, Kameguchi, the chairman of the Kameguchi faction, appears and commends Satoshi for his skills, praising him for having his father's aura. Fumiya is relieved to see his boss and urges him to take down Satoshi and end the Bokuto Society. Koya warns them that starting a fight will alert other outside factions eyeing Ryuta, and that might cause the city to collapse. Kameguchi assures them that he has no plans of starting a gang war, and he only came to congratulate Satoshi on his family reunion. Kameguchi's right-hand man Takagaki then orders Fumiya and the gang to let Satoshi and his people pass through. Yosuke and Koya are surprised to hear this, while Fumiya is stunned as he questions Kameguchi's decision. He points out that letting Satoshi go will only make the Bokuto Society more arrogant. Without warning, Kameguchi puts a bullet through Fumiya's ear as a warning to remind him who's the boss. Afterwards, Satoshi thanks Kameguchi for being such a good sport and sets out with Fuyu, Makoto, and the rest while Kameguchi quietly watches them, visibly uneasy. It turns out that he arrived 2 minutes ago and was planning to let Fumiya fight Satoshi to the death. He had asked his right-hand man Takagaki about the probability of them winning the fight, and Takagaki explained that they have a 70% chance without Satoshi. However, with Satoshi in the mix, they have a 50% chance, but at that moment, their chance of winning is less than 50%. Kameguchi was stunned to hear this because Takagaki is a cultivator, so their chances should be high. Takagaki then reveals that it's exactly because of his training as a cultivator that he can accurately sense danger. He trembles as he points out that Makoto, who came in with Fuyu, is even more dangerous than any firearms. Takagaki further adds that every cell in his body is currently telling him not to go near Makoto. Moments later, Makoto arrives at the Bokuto Society hideout and Fuyu tells him to use the room upstairs. Satoshi also offers him a drink and thanks him for looking after Fuyu during her journey. Makoto then tells Satoshi that he has a question to ask and pulls out the spiritual liquid. He asks where it was obtained from, but Satoshi's face darkens as the vial is supposed to be in Fuyu's possession. Koya and Yosuke also turn hostile as they demand to know why Makoto has the item that Fuyu's father left behind. But once Fuyu tells them that she gave it to Makoto as payment for escorting her since it's no use for her, Satoshi immediately calms down. He tells Makoto that the vial was left by their missing father, so he doesn't know the source of the liquid. Makoto is a bit disappointed, realizing the trail has gone cold again. Seeing how interested he is in the liquid, Satoshi asks Makoto if he's a cultivator. Everyone is surprised when Makoto confirms it, but Fuyu tries to step in, knowing her brother is up to no good. But before she can step in, Satoshi excitedly asks Makoto to duel with him. He reveals that he's been taking spiritual liquid just like his father taught him. Satoshi further adds that he wants to see if he has the talent to become a cultivator because his strength has increased in the last couple of years, and he believes he might have stepped into the realm of cultivation. Satoshi pleads with Makoto to spar with him just to confirm his strength. He reveals that his father told him to stay away from cultivation, but he refuses to live as an ordinary person. However, Makoto refuses to budge and assures Satoshi that he's not a cultivator. He further adds that Satoshi can't face him as an opponent and advises him to find someone at his level. Makoto warns him that he will only end up getting hurt if they spar with each other. But this only infuriates Satoshi as he recalls his father's words, telling him that he's no match for a cultivator. His father also advised him to live an ordinary life and never step into the world of cultivation. Just as Makoto prepares to head back to his room, Satoshi stops him and promises to tell him the location of the spiritual spring in exchange for sparring with him. Yosuke and Koya protest because the location is supposed to remain a secret, but Satoshi has already made up his mind. After a brief silence, Makoto agrees to the deal, and a few moments later, Satoshi takes them to a training ground. He tells Makoto not to hold back and lets him know that the training ground was built to withstand any violent impact. As Satoshi prepares to start their duel, Yosuke and Koya beg to join the fight, but Satoshi points out that it's unfair for all three of them to go up against one person. However, Makoto tells him that he doesn't mind and proudly declares that he can take them all at the same time. Satoshi and the boys are stunned to hear Makoto's words, and Yosuke is annoyed that he's just acting tough. Satoshi laughs it off as a joke while Fuyu tries to tell them that Makoto is truly a monster, but Yosuke continues to mouth off, claiming that he can handle Makoto alone. He then signals for Fuyu to be their timekeeper and promises to finish the duel in less than 5 minutes. Yosuke immediately charges forward, but Makoto remains like a statue, which only pisses Yosuke off more. As he prepares to strike first, Fuyu sighs, knowing that Yosuke is about to have his peaches handed to him. In the blink of an eye, Makoto grabs Yosuke by the collar before he can land the strike, leaving him confused. Before he can figure out what's happening, Makoto uses him to wipe the floor clean, leaving Satoshi and Koya completely dazed. Makoto keeps count after taking down the first one, and immediately Satoshi and Koya charge forward to be his next cleaning tools. Koya attacks from above while Satoshi tries to tackle from below, but Makoto effortlessly dodges both attacks, leaving Satoshi wondering if he can read their mind. Before they can figure out what to do next, Makoto slams Koya into the ground before kicking Satoshi. Meanwhile, Yosuke, who is still recovering, watches them from a distance, amazed by Makoto's strength. In the meantime, Makoto taunts the boys to try again, and they actually do as Satoshi quietly gives them signals on their next move. As soon as he finishes, all three of them charge forward at the same time, but Makoto casually remains in his position. Just then, all three of them attack from all sides at the same time, confident that their new strategy will work. However, with an effortless tap of his feet, Makoto practically shatters the ground, and with one strike each, he first takes out Yosuke and Koya. Meanwhile, Satoshi swiftly moves in, confident he can finally take Makoto down with one powerful strike. However, he feels a little uneasy seeing Makoto remain calm despite the incoming attack. After unleashing the strike with everything that he's got, Satoshi heaves, confident that it was definitely a hit. But to his surprise, Makoto comes out without even a single scratch and decides to end the duel since the boys might get hurt if they continue. Meanwhile, Satoshi and the boys are completely out of breath, and Koya wonders if Makoto is even human. Yosuke asks Fuyu for the time, and she reveals that Makoto crushed them in under 2 minutes. Yosuke is devastated to hear that they're just measly 1-minute men, while Satoshi realizes that the gap between him and Makoto is like heaven and earth. He also points out that Makoto has not moved a single inch from the same spot since they began to spar. Satoshi then thanks him for holding back, and Makoto lets Satoshi know that his power is close to that of a first-stage cultivator. He further explains that Satoshi hasn't progressed because he hasn't learned how to utilize his spiritual energy yet. Satoshi then questions if what they saw was Makoto's full power, but Makoto's silence makes him realize that it might even be less than half of Makoto's true strength. This makes him realize that his father didn't want him to walk the path of a cultivator because he's too weak. Yosuke is shocked that what they witnessed wasn't Makoto's full power, and Koya calls him dumb for thinking otherwise. Afterwards, Makoto asks Satoshi to give him the information promised earlier. Satoshi agrees and pulls out a stone pendant, explaining that it holds some kind of secret according to his father. Satoshi tells Makoto that he has yet to uncover the secrets of the pendant because no matter how much he tries, the stone is just ordinary. However, Makoto immediately recognizes that it's actually a memory stone. He never expected to find such an advanced cultivation method in this world. Makoto tells Satoshi that he hasn't been able to use the stone because he isn't looking at it from a cultivator's perspective. He further tells them that the stone is called a memory stone, and just as Makoto crushes it, the spiritual energy explodes, taking them into the stored memory recording. Just then, a monk appears, and Satoshi calls out to him as soon as he recognizes him as their father. Unfortunately, Makoto tells him that his father can't hear him because it's simply a projection. Makoto notes that creating a memory stone requires the power of a level 4 cultivator. In the meantime, everyone listens to the recording as the monk pleads with the listener to spare the life of the owner of the pendant. He then proceeds to reveal that the spirit spring still exists, but advises the listener not to look for it because it will soon run dry. Makoto is stunned to hear this, as this only hinders his goal to get stronger. The monk then explains that he was the one guarding the spring, but his selfishness caused it to almost dry up and destroy a nation. He further adds that he realized that such things should never exist in this world, which is why he decided to take the secret to his grave. Since information about the spring will eventually leak out, he left the message behind to protect Satoshi and Fuyu because he knows they might risk their lives to protect the secret behind the spring. The monk then pulls out a key and tells the listener to head to his shrine if they must absolutely find the spring. He promises that all the information required is hidden in his room. Makoto collects the key, after which the monk begs anyone listening to spare his children. Next, he left a message behind for Satoshi in case he was the one who activated the memory stone. Fuyu bursts into tears as she listened to her father apologize for going out to buy milk and never returning. He then urges Satoshi to stop searching for the spirit spring and live a peaceful life with his siblings. With that, the recording ends, and as the image begins to vanish into thin air, the monk apologizes to Satoshi again, leaving him devastated. After the heart-wrenching adventure, Satoshi and his family sit quietly, taking in their father's words as they realize he's not just missing, but dead. Makoto comforts Satoshi in his own weird way. Satoshi then thanks Makoto, after which he informs him that their father's shrine is located where he grew up with Fuyu, and only the two of them know its location. Fuyu offers to take Makoto there the next day, and just then, someone bangs on the door of their hideout. Elsewhere, Fumiya is still furious that he was humiliated in front of Satoshi. When the blondie asks how they should proceed, Fumiya angrily declares that he wants revenge for his lost ear and the humiliation he suffered. He then demands a phone and calls someone to hurry to Ryuta as their plan has been moved forward. The person on the phone hesitates, pointing out that the whole situation now involves a dangerous person. But Fumiya refuses to back down and assures him that he will handle it. Elsewhere, several groups of goons prepare to follow Fumiya's plan, just as a knock rings out behind the Bokuto Society hideout, startling them and keeping Makoto very alert. As the knocking continues, Fuyu wonders who would come to their place so late at night. Satoshi also wonders if the guards stationed outside couldn't handle the sudden visitor. Instead of speculating, Makoto quietly opens the door but is surprised to see Rei outside. She apologizes for disturbing them, while Satoshi, who doesn't recognize her, questions why she came to their place so late at night. However, Fuyu lets him know that Rei actually traveled with them. Makoto is stunned when Rei reveals that she came to see him, after which she begs him to save her grandfather. Rei explains that he has been sick since he came back from abroad, and no doctor has been able to find the cause of his illness. Even though it has recently slowed down, Rei tells Makoto that her grandfather doesn't seem to have much time, and only a legendary cultivator can help him. Makoto considers helping her since it's just a side quest for some extra bucks, but his top priority is the spiritual spring. As if sensing his hesitation, Rei quickly offers him her family's heirloom bracelet as a deposit. Makoto lights up as he recognizes that the bracelet was made out of purple heart vine, a plant that only grows with very strict environmental requirements. Basically, it only grows next to a spiritual spring as a companion plant, and for ordinary humans, the plant extends life, but it helps cultivators refine spiritual energy. Makoto knows that the purple heart vine can help speed up his cultivation, but since he's out of healing talismans, he can't help Rei's grandfather. However, he agrees to help, but lets Rei know that her grandfather's case might be slightly delayed. He tells her to leave her contact information and promises to call her after handling his important business. Rei agrees to Makoto's terms and hands him the bracelet, which he studies intently and decides to investigate its source later, since it's closely related to spiritual springs. A few moments later, Fuyu asks Rei about her family as she recalls that Chino mentioned that Rei was from a rich family. Rei then reveals that her father is Zanryu, the chairman of the Ryuto conglomerate, ranked top 5 globally. Apparently, Zanryu gave about 35% of the group's shares to his youngest daughter, who is none other than Rei. Elsewhere, an internal gang war brews as Fumiya and his goons decide to betray Kamiguchi, their boss. Kamiguchi remains calm as he questions Fumiya for trying to bite his master, but Fumiya laughs menacingly, telling Kamiguchi to read the room. He boasts that his people have surrounded the place, but Kamiguchi calls him a fool for measuring strength by numbers. He then confidently boasts that he holds true power and orders Takagaki to take care of them. Takagaki agrees, and as he unsheaths his katana, which is disguised as a cane, Fumiya eagerly urges him to proceed. To Kamiguchi's surprise, the blade sweeps clean through his neck instead of Fumiya's. Takagaki proceeds to taunt him for not suspecting him in the first place, and Fumiya joins in the mockery. As his life flashes before his eyes, Kamiguchi realizes that he was betrayed by his most trusted right-hand man. When he questions Takagaki about the betrayal, Takagaki swiftly plunges the sword into his mouth, finishing him. He then laments that he did all the work, while Kamiguchi simply reaped all the benefits while playing Godfather. Shortly afterwards, Fumiya tells Takagaki that they need to head to Satoshi's territory and erase him to completely take over Ryuta. However, Takagaki advises him to take a chill pill, pointing out that someone powerful is behind Satoshi. Fumiya is surprised to hear that Takagaki is actually afraid of someone and asks if it's a fellow cultivator. Takagaki confirms that the one close to Satoshi is a powerful cultivator, but he's confident that they can handle him once his older brother arrives in town. Takagaki confidently assures Fumiya that no cultivator can stand in their way once they join forces with his so-called senior brother. The following day, Fuyu takes Makoto on the hike to her father's shrine, but she soon runs out of breath while Makoto effortlessly breezes through as if strutting the runway. Makoto is amazed that a temple is hidden deep in the mountain, and no one can tell unless they expose their location. He continues the climb and urges Fuyu to hurry, leaving her frustrated and wondering how he's not out of breath. They soon reach the temple, and Fuyu plops to the ground, tired, as she shows Makoto the place where she grew up with Satoshi. According to Fuyu, her father called it the Yaksha Vidyaraja Temple. She explains that the last time she came here was when their father suddenly disappeared. As Makoto walks into the temple, he senses spiritual energy around it and figures that Fuyu's father must have used the place as his personal dojo. Fuyu then takes Makoto to her father's room and explains that she knows the place like the back of her hand, but she has never seen anything requiring a key there. Makoto studies the key closely and reasons that it might not be for a box. Meanwhile, Fuyu reminisces about her happy childhood days in the temple with Satoshi and tells Makoto a little about the time she spent there with her father. She mentions that her father always put the statue away whenever he left the room, so she's surprised that he actually left it standing in its place. Makoto finds it strange that Fuyu's father only kept one statue of the Vidyaraja. He asks Fuyu about it, but she explains that she doesn't know why. And whenever she asks her father, he keeps going on about how worshipping Vidyaraja is his mission. Studying the statue carefully, Fuyu mentions that her father might have crafted it himself. Just then, Makoto finally realizes something as he praises Fuyu's father for his strength. He then pours spiritual energy towards the statue, which immediately makes the locked door in front of the statue visible to the human eye. Fuyu is stunned to see this, and Makoto tells her that the door was crafted from spirit artifacts used to hide objects. He also praises Fuyu's father for being an excellent refiner, but Fuyu is lost just hearing all the words. So Makoto explains that cultivation is divided into different stages, and between each one is a massive gap. He adds that the first 2 levels of cultivation focus on strengthening spiritual energy, while the 3rd and 4th levels allow the use of spells. But cultivators at the 5th and 6th levels can be called immortals. He then lets her know that things associated with cultivation, like refining pills, crafting arrays, and tools, are something that ordinary humans can never understand. Makoto tells Fuyu that her father is very skilled at forging spiritual artifacts. However, Fuyu is more concerned with how Makoto has so much knowledge about cultivation when he looks like a scrawny dude fresh out of high school. Makoto then puts the key into the lock, and as soon as he opens the artifact, the statue begins to melt. Inside the statue, they find a box containing a coordinate and a small old pendant. Makoto notes that the items are ordinary and don't contain any spiritual energy. Fuyu quickly checks the coordinates on her phone and notices that it only covers a large area without any specifics. She, however, tells Makoto that the area is not far from the temple. Makoto decides to stay in the temple while searching for the spiritual spring at the coordinates. Fuyu offers to stay a few days just to help him clean up, after which she urges him to join her for a soak in a nearby hot spring. Somewhere deep in the forest, a little boy is seen trying to escape from his abductors while clutching a very familiar pendant. He manages to hide away just as the mercenaries arrive, but one of them threatens him with his sister. However, after a while, they decide to keep searching since the little boy refuses to fall for their trick. The other mercenary urges his comrade to quickly find the boy before their captain notices that the boy is missing. Once they move on, the boy heaves a sigh of relief and starts sobbing because of his sister. He then prays to the Supreme Being to help him return to their village safely and find the village chief. At the same time, the pendant in his hand glows, revealing that it's similar to the one Makoto found inside the box at the temple. Meanwhile, Makoto has been searching for the spiritual spring using the coordinates from the box, but with no success. He begins to wonder if the coordinates are wrong, or maybe the spring has completely dried up. Makoto fears that it might be troublesome if it dries up because it's the only way to quickly level up his cultivation. This is because it would take him at least 100 years to level up if he relies on the thin spiritual energy in this world, and Makoto doesn't want to wait that long. Just as he's contemplating how to proceed, a ruffle in the bushes alerts him, and the little boy who was being chased by mercenaries rushes out. Just as Makoto is wondering what he's doing so deep in the forest, the boy warns him of an incoming danger. This makes Makoto very alert, and just then, several mercenaries arrive. Thinking Makoto is trying to help the boy escape, one of the mercenaries warns him not to meddle, but another casually tells him to murder Makoto. However, Makoto remains calm because Fuyu already told him that the area is constantly plagued by dangerous mercenaries. Just as one of the mercenaries smugly prepares to end Makoto, the boy tells him to run, but Makoto remains unconcerned. However, before the bullet can leave the gun, Makoto swiftly charges forward and grabs the gun. The mercenary is still puzzled and wonders whether Makoto is even human. Makoto angrily tells the dude that he's in a bad mood because he hasn't found what he's looking for, and people keep getting in his way with their guns. Makoto then effortlessly crushes the gun like a paper piñata, leaving the mercenary speechless. Another tries to attack him with a machete, but Makoto uses the remaining part of the crushed gun to defeat him. He then uses the machete to swiftly finish up the remaining 2. At the same time, the boy watches in amazement as Makoto takes down the mercenaries without breaking a sweat, convincing him that Makoto must be the one his sister was talking about. Despite taking down the minor disturbance, Makoto is still annoyed because he hasn't found what he's looking for, only for some pests to annoy him further. Just then, the little boy calls his attention, excitedly asking if he's the great heavenly supreme being. His sister told him that this supreme being is very powerful, and after witnessing Makuto's power, the boy is convinced that Makuto is the one. However, Makuto rejects the title and tries to ignore him, but he refuses to give up and explains that his sister is the saintess of Spirit Pond Village. He then bows down, begging Makuto to save his sister, who had been abducted. Makuto figures that the same mercenaries chasing the boy must have taken his sister. To convince Makuto that he's telling the truth, the boy shows him the pendant and explains that it's his sister's token as the saintess. Apparently, the heavenly supreme being is supposed to recognize the token, and Makuto immediately recognizes it. He pulls out his pendant to compare it and realizes his pendant is actually older. Seeing this, the boy is even more convinced that Makuto is the one he's searching for. Makuto then asks him about the pendant, and he explains that it has been passed down through generations of saintesses in their village. Apparently, the pendant was from a supreme being. Makuto wonders if this supreme being is actually Fuyu's father. Realizing that the boy's village might hold the secret of the spiritual spring, Makuto is finally relieved that his 3 days of toiling weren't a waste, so he agrees to save the saintess first. Meanwhile, somewhere in the mercenary base, the little boy's sister, Wanchin, is about to be interrogated. Basically, Wanchin's village has been protecting the secret of the spiritual spring for over 1,000 years, and now she's being hunted for it. The interrogator assures her that she doesn't need to be afraid as long as she answers his questions. With that, he sternly asks her for the location of the spiritual spring. The following day, while heading to the mercenary base, the boy asks Makuto how he plans to rescue Wanchin. But Makuto replies that they need to get to the camp before making a plan. He said this because he wanted to be sure of the organization's strength since they seem very organized. This is because during his trip to Ryuta, he luckily caught that rocket in his hand but still got a little scratched, so now he doesn't want to rush in recklessly as this group might have even more heavy machinery. Makuto's thoughts are interrupted when the boy starts talking about how his sister helped plan his escape. Just then, they finally reach a cliff overlooking the mercenary camp, and he tells Makuto that they can't get any closer or someone might spot them. He assures Makuto that they're holding his sister somewhere in the camp. Makuto quietly scans the whole camp, and just as he thought, they had way too many heavy weapons. Seeing that there is no safer way to sneak in, he decides to use his wildcard, Aima's identity-changing ring. A few moments later, one of the mercenaries heads into a secluded spot for a smoke, and Makuto knocks him out. After pulling him into the bush, he uses the ring to change into the dude. Makuto is satisfied with the result, except that it requires touching the person being impersonated. Still, he's relieved that the ring doesn't consume spiritual energy, which is why Aima used it like his daily bread. Just then, a group of mercenaries calls their comrade, who went for a smoke, and Makuto quickly joins them, perfectly disguised. Later that night, Makuto quietly strolls through the camp, trying to figure out where the boy's sister is being held. Suddenly, a senior soldier, Captain Fang, stops him, asking why he's wandering about. He demands to check Makuto's identification, and Makuto quickly lies that he's searching for a place to smoke. After confirming his identity, Captain Fang recognizes him as a notorious heavy smoker and simply warns him that smoking in the base is prohibited. Makuto tries to laugh it off, but Captain Fang lets him know that it's against the rules and it will be reported to his squad leader. However, he tells Makuto to assist him in running a shift since they need some extra hands. Makuto agrees, and as they head off, Captain Fang tells Makuto that their boss, Consul Liang, executed a couple of soldiers because a boy escaped from the base, so this is why they need more people to guard the prison. Makuto is relieved to hear this because the Saintess might be in this prison. Before heading inside, Captain Fang warns Makuto to be careful not to offend this Liang dude because he's no ordinary human. Inside the prison, Captain Fang continues to give Makuto unwanted advice on how to work hard for a promotion. Afterwards, he expresses how much he pities the poor prisoners, and Makuto tells him to let them go since they're so pitiful. However, Captain Fang explains that he has no authority to go against his superiors. He assures Makuto that the prisoners may be released later since they're just hostages to pressure the government. However, Makuto believes there might be more to the abduction than just pressuring the government. He decides to focus on the task of finding Wanchin, and her little brother had already told him that his sister has very distinct, naturally pink hair. After briefly scanning the room, he finds her lying inside a cell and decides to come up with a plan for her rescue. But first, he must figure out how to deal with Captain Fang. Just as Captain Fang concentrates on helping a wounded hostage, Makuto prepares to take him out. Back at the temple, Fuyu worries that she hasn't heard from Makuto all day. However, she believes that with his strength, he shouldn't be in any danger. Just then, the temple door opens, and Fuyu excitedly figures it must be Makuto. But to her surprise, it's Rei supporting a badly wounded Satoshi who seems to have lost a limb. Satoshi tells Rei that something happened to Yosuke and the rest of the Bokuto gang. Meanwhile, at the last minute, Makuto changes his mind and decides not to hurt Captain Fang. When Makuto offers to help treat the injured prisoner, Captain Fang is impressed and promises to put in a good word for him regarding his punishment for smoking on base. Just then, Fatso, the commander of the base and brother to the notorious Consul Liang, interrupts their moment as he scolds Captain Fang for not guarding the prison properly. Fang quickly apologizes, but when Fatso notices that he has been treating the prisoners again, he yells at Captain Fang, making him tremble. Fatso then slaps him and tells him to get lost before scanning the room for another prey to toy with. As he scans the room, Fatso bitterly complains that the last girl he played with died too easily, so it made things boring. Captain Fang tries to stop him, reminding him that he can't take anyone away without Liang's permission. Before Captain Fang can finish talking, Fatso wipes the floor clean with him and warns him to back off or become his punching bag again. He then begins boasting that Liang is his brother, which gives him the right to do whatever he wants. He even mentions that no one can do anything to him if he murks every single one of the hostages. Despite the beating, Captain Fang refuses to back down, so Fatso orders his men to use him as their punching bag. As the men gang up against Captain Fang, Fatso's eyes suddenly fall on Wanchen and he picks her as his next prey. Even though he has been badly battered, Captain Fang continues to protest. Just then, Fatso notices Makoto and tells him to leave and shut the door behind him. He warns him not to enter the room no matter what he hears, because he doesn't want anyone to ruin his predatory mood. Captain Fang calls Makoto, hoping to get him to refuse, but Makoto agrees to obey Fatso, leaving Captain Fang disappointed. This makes Fatso happy as he begins mocking Captain Fang for being such a party pooper. Unbeknownst to Fatso, Makoto has a much better plan as he shuts the door from inside. Fatso notices this and barks at him to leave, but Makoto ignores him and proceeds to secure the door bolt. After that, he effortlessly twists the huge bolt to make sure no one gets out. At this time, Fatso continues to bark like a lost mutt, but when Makoto doesn't answer, he starts threatening to blow Makoto's brain out. After securing the door, Makoto sternly tells Fatso that no one is leaving until he handles his business. Despite Makoto's very obvious killing intent, Fatso and his boys remain smug. Fatso even boasts that Makoto is no match for him, so Makoto urges them to try as he signals for them to have a taste of his power. Fatso is furious with the sheer disrespect and yells at his men to annihilate Makoto. One of the overconfident soldiers decides to be the first sacrifice and confidently tells Fatso to cover for him if he murks Makoto. Fatso smugly eggs him on, boasting that the so-called powerful consul Liang is his brother, so taking out a few cannon fodder shouldn't be a problem. The dude then charges towards Makoto with a dagger, but Makoto easily dodges. Before the guy can figure out what's happening, Makoto slams his face into the ground as he reminds everyone in the room of his initial warning that no one will be spared.